That in mind, we're going to move into the community session now. I think we have a number of folks from the community who are here, and then we'll hear from elected officials as they arrive to the meeting. So, first speaker tonight is Olive Bray. And I'll call folks up. Just a reminder, these are 1 minute. We'd like to ask you to provide a statement for the record if you'd like to speak. Have comments that last longer than a minute. It'll be Olive, followed by Justin Peck, followed by Caitlin Peterson.
I'm with the Committee for Environmentally Sound Development, and I'm here to talk about those 100 plus 150-story buildings on 57th Street and the terrible shadows that will go on to Central Park. Community Board 5 passed a resolution that they want a moratorium. And of course, we want Community Board 7 to do the same thing. We also want all the community boards in Manhattan to follow it under that resolution. And when we have the moratorium, my organization for about a year now has been sending out a petition for what's to be considered when we have this moratorium and when we can think about what we need. We want to limit height, so it never can happen again. We require an environmental impact study on all buildings over 25 stories, no more as of right. Consider existing density and congestion in neighborhood streets. We require operable windows. All of these terrible buildings that are going up have no windows, they have glass walls, and it's extremely dangerous. It's worse than dangerous, it's environmentally unsound. We want to prohibit tall residential buildings in low-lying areas subject to sea rise and storm surge. It's so everybody has forgotten Superstorm Sandy. We're putting terribly big buildings where they should never be. And the federal government is no longer funding any buildings, and I wish New York City would stop helping the developers do that. We want to contain a sunshine clause. San Francisco has a sunshine clause, doesn't let buildings put shadows in. We've gotten Al Bussell, a very good lawyer, to outline a ordinance that we'd like someone to bring up. And, well, I guess that's about what I want to say, but I'm sure that everybody's heart in Community Board 7 is in the right place, so just let's hurry up and get it done.
Great, thanks, Olive. And Mel Blackmore is not here, I don't think yet. He's been meeting. Mel, do you want to say a word about that?
Yes.
You just missed my whole.
I heard your whole.
Oh, you hold it up.
It's kind of impromptu, I apologize for that, but this, I think you're talking about the shadows on Central Park South. And we have several developments already in progress with approximately 6 more, so a total of 12 or 13 super high towers going up on the south side of Central Park. All of which will cast shadows up to 72nd Street on the park through the winter times. And these are very tall buildings allowed by new technology to get as tall as they are. And I have proposed to the Land Use Committee that we pass a resolution just to put a short moratorium on these developments until we can figure out the zoning regulations that would be appropriate to this new technology. So we'll be discussing that later in the month.
Yeah, that'll be at the June land use meeting, right?
Land use, and hopefully please attend if you have any interest in this. It's a very big problem, or a very big challenge, because we're talking about, decades and decades and decades where these buildings would go up, and no analysis would be at all.
You specifically said buildings 59th Street and Central Park South. What about the one on 65th Street and others?
Yeah, they go from like 57th, 58th, 59th, and Central Park South. That's kind of
That's it. You don't care about the one in our community?
In our district, we have a few also going up, but especially 67th Street, yes.
Yes.
And that's also part of this. You really need to look at and analyze how the zoning resolution applies to these super high buildings.
Okay, so June land use, third Wednesday of
Thank you
June.
very much.
Thanks, Mel. Justin Peck, followed by Caitlin Peterson.
Hi, everybody. Really quickly, I just wanted to know, there was a unanimous decision by the New York Senate about allowing dogs on patios. And we're talking about a lot of patios today. I don't want to know if that was clear to the owners, it was up to their discretion now, whether or not dogs were allowed or not. there's no legal requirement.
So my understanding, and Assemblymember Rosenthal, I do not believe is here yet, and I'm not sure if her representative is here yet either. No, Jason, you're here, but not. I believe this came through Linda's office. My understanding, and I spoke with her about this late last week, was that it is at the owner's discretion. I don't know if our BCI chairs have heard anything or have thoughts about it, or would like to follow up with this gentleman, with Justin, just about it. That'd be great. We'll talk to our BCI business.
Yeah, I would just like to make sure there was some way for the people to know that it's up to their discretion rather than me informing them that the law passed.
So like a sign or something, just to say that this order.
When they apply for a new something, this can happen or whatever.
Okay, I think that's a really valid point, and George and Michelle will help you work through that.
Thank you.
I'm here already. Caitlin and Suzanne Urich, followed by Bruce Beck.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Peterson. I'm the president of the Manhattan Community Boathouse. We are the free public kayaking program at 72nd Street. So I'm just here to let everyone know that we open up this weekend. It's supposed to rain, but we will be open every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. until Labor Day. So we hope to see you out on the water. We're here to keep the Hudson River free and open to the public all summer long. Thank you.
Suzanne? And then Bruce, followed by Bob Wyman.
I just want to spend a second talking about the Upper West Side, the sidewalks, and the inability of people who are seniors or wheelchairs or with walkers to be able to walk around, given that there are bikes that are parked on the sidewalk, and given that there are cafes that take up more than 9 feet from the curb. It's unfriendly. I often have to walk in the street in order to get by, because you're crowds of people as well. Enough said. I'm going to follow up with specific examples, yes. I will definitely follow up with examples. I've done that before. It didn't get me anywhere, but I will do it again.
There's specific blocks that you're.
Mostly, I would say Columbus between 80th and 86th, Amsterdam between 84th and 77th.
Thank you. Bruce?
Hi, Liz, thank you. As a basic, taking off of what Suzanne said, can you please have representation from the community board at the 20th precinct monthly meeting so that the legislative and the enforcement arm could work together in terms of addressing some of these issues? Because right now we don't see any representation from the community board at the monthly precinct meetings.
Thank you, Bruce. We will make sure to follow up on that. One of our members has been ill, who was a frequent attender recently. We'll make sure to work on that.
Here to talk about my favorite subject, filth. You'll remember, actually, I'm not quite sure, I think it was 5, 6 years ago, the first time I came and spoke to the board about number 6 fuel oil, bunker fuel, essentially industrial sludge used to burn, used to produce heat in our homes. With the board's support, we managed to change the law, and I just want to remind everybody that this month, June of 2015, marks the last legal use, the end of the legal use of number 6 fuel oil. Now, just to remind you as well, the mayor's office, even just recently said that they believe, once again, that the impact of this has not only been that we now have the cleanest air in New York City in over 50 years, but we've reduced by over 50% the amount of soot and particulate matter. We've saved somewhere on the order of hundreds of lives per year in reduction of premature mortality. And we've reduced by thousands the number of emergency room visits that come from respiratory issues. I just want to say, if I just say one thing, and that is that now we've dealt with number 6. We still do have some scofflaws in CB7. Some people who refused, even though they've had years of wanting to get this filth out of their buildings. Hopefully they will be hunted down and penalties will be assessed and they'll be stopped. But now that we've dealt with number 6, it's time to move on to number 4. The city has allowed number 4 until 2030. And the reason for that was because it was inconvenient for our school construction authority to convert just boilers in buildings instead of converting the entire buildings. But we still have essentially number 4, which is essentially a half and half blend between number 2 and the filth, which is number 6, which is being burned in our schools and in a lot of other residential and commercial buildings in the city. And it is still killing people, and it's still sickening people. Not as bad as number 6, okay, but it's unnecessary, essentially, socialization of the cost of private profit. People thinking that they're saving some money by making this, by using this filthy fuel instead of doing the socially responsible thing and using clean fuels. So I just want to say we need to move on from 6 to 4, and we need to get rid of that filth before 2030.
Thanks, Bob. And I think that could be a subject of an upcoming Parks and Environment meeting or an agenda item potentially. So thanks for staying on top of it. Yeah. Okay. Philip Stein, followed by Jill Ehrlichman.
Yes, hi, thanks for the opportunity. I'm a resident and shareholder at 101 West 81st Street at Columbus. I'd like to talk about the siting of the city bike program that's been mentioned here of the agenda of the next meeting. In particular, there are 3 safety issues I'd like you to be aware of that are specific to West 81st Street. First, it's the access road to get to 79th Street, transverse roads from Central Park, so there's a high line of traffic there on a narrow street. The second is that the M79 bus, which of course is an articulated bus, has to weave its way through that road, which creates another hazard. And then thirdly, if you're familiar with the topology of the area, there's a hill over which the traffic has to travel in traveling east in order to get through that roadway. So there are 3 significant safety issues you should consider when you discuss that particular site. Thank you.
We have a number of folks here talking about 101 West 81st Street. We just like to ask you if you have new points to try to raise them each so we can get through all these public comments. So Nancy Heeman is Jill and Nancy, sorry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am a resident of 160 Riverside Boulevard at 67th Street. My concern is also about a city bike proposed location. It is in front of a preschool, the Dwight Early Childhood Division. It is a very active and vibrant school with large numbers of small children passing through that courtyard. And I'm concerned that a bike station right there would be dangerous. The street is very difficult to cross as it is. There are no speed reduction bumps. There are stop signs that drivers unfortunately ignore. The area should be a slow zone, and adding a bike station directly in front of the school will not only further increase the traffic, but add danger to the pedestrians, especially the small children. When the school has needed emergency vehicles, they pull up right there where the proposed station is. And I'm concerned that in an emergency, obviously that would be a problem. So as a mother of 3 small children who attend that preschool, I implore you to please look at other very attractive locations on the boulevard. Thank you so much for your time.
So Nancy Hammond, followed by Diane Glass, followed by Willis Seltzer.
Good evening. I'm also a shareholder and resident of 101 West 81st Street. And this morning, not really that early, about 8 o'clock, I put a note at the front desk asking people who were opposed to the city bikes installation right in front of our building to please sign the petition. About 2/3 or more of the building signed this petition, so I think it's fair to say that I represent a majority of the shareholders who happened to pass by and got home in time to sign it. So here are the issues. First of all, the Endicott is undergoing an exterior renovation and is going to have scaffolding, which is there currently, for the next 2 years. So the sidewalk is already obstructed, besides being a narrow sidewalk. And I agree with the lady who talked about it being completely inaccessible to people who have disabilities because it's very difficult. In addition, the parking has always been an issue and has become more so as the street has been divided, in a straight line as well as a right turn lane. So that has created additional traffic there, and it has created a situation for the bus as well. It's just an impassable kind of street. I think that covers it.
Thank you.
We really don't want city bags right in front of our building. Besides the safety issues, there just isn't room for it, and the residents don't want it. So, appreciate it.
So for those who are arriving late, we are doing a meeting on safety and infrastructure on June 9th. I know a lot of these comments are about locations, but the meeting, the Transportation Committee will be focused entirely on those 2 issues on Tuesday, June 9th at the board office at 7 p.m. So next I think Diane, was that just Diane? Diane Glass and then Willis Switzer.
I also live at the Endicott, and I just want to add to what Phil and Nancy said. I'm a huge biker, by the way, so this is not has anything to do with being against biking. I was here last and we were 7 to run up the bike lanes. It's just the most ludicrous location. I don't know whether DOT came up with the idea or who exactly decided on 81st right in front of our building, but if you were looking from above at our intersection, it's the absolute worst place to do it. It's the narrow street, the narrow sidewalk. But I just want to speak as a mom too. Aside from having one entrance for all 130 families that live in the building, which would be obscured by a city bike station, which would impede safety vehicles and whatnot and deliveries. A lot of us have petitioned the city and gotten school buses to pull up right in front of our door, so our small children don't have to cross any streets to get in and out of the buses. And I just wouldn't allow them to, I can't say how strongly we feel about having that bus access, and that would be completely impeded. So that's about it.
The sites are all being accepted, just so you know, and those site visits are currently ongoing within the Transportation Committee.
Sorry, it just makes so little sense. It's hard to think that things that actually look terrible yet.
Okay, thanks. Willow.
I'm not against, but there's some kids who also signed up, and they have a different thing to say, but on the same topic, so it'd be great if what other people can speak for it. I guess we want to make sure we have all the yellow forms.
We put them all in there. So is it okay if we just go in the order that, okay. So this is Naomi for your yellow form.
We are all 6th graders in the 10 schools on the Upper West Side. In our survey of people walking into this meeting, we found that 100% of people want to see the streets of the Upper West Side safer, and 95% want Community Board 7 to do more to address street safety. As 12-year-olds going to school and hanging out on the Upper West Side, we have very different viewpoints than many adults and CB7 members. We try to be as safe as possible when crossing streets in our neighborhood, but sometimes it's very scary. The fact that one driver that makes a mistake could mean my life or another person's life gone or ruined forever is terrifying to me. I'm sure you've heard this before many times, but from many different people. But we are the future generation. We want you to hear it from us. Because we are 12, next year we won't be able to ride bikes on the sidewalk anymore. We will be commuting alone and not having a mother, father, or babysitter to watch out for us. If someone makes a mistake while driving, it could affect my life. Can you imagine what it would be like to lose your 9-year-old son to a driver making a silly mistake? Think of Cooper Scott. He was my brother's age and we only lived 4 blocks apart. He was just a boy. He had friends and people who loved him. Every person in this room loves someone and has someone that loves them. If your loved one died because people chose not to change the streets and make them safer, that would break your heart. Please fix our streets and protect all the children walking and biking in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Do you want me to go next? Together. Happy to have you guys. Yeah. And she's signed up. Yeah, we're all signed up. Not all, but.
Okay, January of 2014 was a horrible month for street safety on the Upper West Side, as you all know. In just one night, less than an hour apart, we lost 2 of our neighbors to street violence. Many of you might remember we held a vigil to honor 9-year-old Cooper Stock and Alexander Shear. Many of you were there. Hundreds of our neighbors came to this vigil, and we mourned the loss of 2 great people. At the community board meetings that followed, many people showed up and demanded answers and action from the community board. People were angry, and rightly so. This community board has discriminated against good street safety ideas and the advocates that care for far too long. In fact, in 2010, we had identified the very intersections where both Cooper and Alex were killed in a campaign we called Corridor 96. Instead of acting on any of our ideas, the community board chose to study the corridor, and then to study it again, and then to sit on those recommendations until in February of 2014, you were forced to act. In March of 2014, at the full board meeting, Chair Caputo announced a Vision Zero task force. This task force was supposed to address street safety concerns and provide more long-term planning. In her own words, they wanted the community to know that they were working very hard on these issues. From what we can gather, this task force met once or twice, not the bi-monthly meetings that Caputo claimed would happen, and they have nothing to show for the work that they've done. In fact, now it's being called a design committee and not a safety committee. We are here to say that we're tired of the inaction, we're tired of unsafe conditions, and we, your neighbors and members of this community, are desperate for leadership that understands and believes in Vision Zero. No more studying, no more fake task forces, and no more inaction. We know what saves lives. Let's do it.
I'd like to echo what Lisa said. There have been members of this community who have been trying for over a decade to engage with CB7 and come up with a productive process that will lead to meaningful recommendations and changes for our street. It seems like actually meaningfully talking about and thinking about street safety is a taboo issue on CB7. And there's a lot of noise about it, but the fact is, you formed a street safety committee and put in charge of it someone who was completely indifferent to street safety, who didn't want to talk about it, who was vocally hostile to people on the committee and in the neighborhood who were active and interested in working on street safety. And then, when this committee failed in every meaningful way, you lied about it. And declare that it wasn't about safety, even though there were public statements, board minutes, press articles that said this. I mean, what does it take to get CB7 to actually take action and not be hostile to this? We don't want to come here and protest. We just want to have a constructive process, and we've been shut out time and time again. There's a lot of good ideas, and it should not be brutally hard to take every tiny step. This has to stop.
Thank you, Mark. All right, Beth Kelly is next, and Willow. Willow, if you want to go down.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so my name is Willow Stelter, and I live at 35 West 90th Street. I wanted to finish on a positive note. So my message is simple. The community board has a unique opportunity to lead on street safety, and I hope you will take it. Much of what goes into making a street safer can be done at the local level. We don't need to go to Albany to get approval for most of these things. In addition, there are people on the community board already who have deep knowledge of street safety and are passionate about it. So I urge the community board to take this opportunity, create a Vision Zero task force, as other community boards have, appoint people who are knowledgeable and passionate, and empower them to create a vision and plan for making our streets safer. Instead of making changes based on the intersection where a member of our community died, you can put in place proven street safety improvements that can save lives. You're in a unique opportunity to lead, to be a leader to protect our community, and I hope you will take it. Thank you, Rob. Meredith?
I'm here representing Families for Safe Streets. For those of you who don't know about us, we are a group that formed last year after there were a number of horribly tragic deaths that many of whom were children. We have all lost a loved one. This is my husband. We carry our pictures. We are primarily responsible for bringing down the speed limit this year. They said you can't change a law in Albany for less than 5 years, and we did it in 5 months because we tell our stories, and they are tragic. And I am just so disappointed as a member of this community since 1976, and having been attending these board meetings since my husband was killed. It'll be 9 years this month. That we have not made the changes. We have not had the vision of leadership that we need on the Transportation Committee. And we already have people with vision that sit on that Transportation Committee. Please support Vision Zero, create that task force, Liz, make this happen, community. Your legacy could be one that makes this community shine for safety, makes this a livable community like none other. Please stop dragging your heels, don't get caught in the bureaucracy and the weeds, make it happen. And for all of you who are here because you're concerned about safety related to city bike and stations, I hope we will see you here when the issues are around speed bumps and speeding and all the other things that go into Vision Zero on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Any other speakers in the group? Okay, I think we have a number of speakers here tonight to talk about PS 75 from the PTA on a related matter. We're going to start with Amaya Gelman and then Jody. Sorry, Jody. I'm trying to read this handwriting of your last name. About Sonia. Sorry. Thank you. Amaya first.
Thanks. I'm here on behalf of the PS 75 Parent-Teacher Association and actually the school community as a whole. We've been organizing over the last month or so because we're extremely concerned about proposed construction right across the street from the school on 95th Street at 711 West End Avenue. The proposal is to do a rather giant and extreme construction project using somewhat experimental construction methods. There are lots of problems that the tenants have identified. It's a rent-regulated building. The developers have not represented the project fairly or appropriately. They're kind of the buildings empty and stuff like that. But our concerns are about the safety of the school and the capacity of the school to keep functioning when the construction is happening. There are lots of details about the construction that are extremely unnerving. They're talking about closing the lane of 95th Street, which is already, as you know, extremely packed with traffic coming off the highway. It's a place where Vision Zero is actually launched because someone was killed on that corner. It's extremely dangerous, and we feel like we're taking our lives into our hands crossing the street. There's been construction nearby that also created accidents. So what we're asking for the community board to do, and this is our first time approaching you on this, is to help us raise the issue. We need to, DOB is not doing anything they're not supposed to do by approving the permits, but they don't have any remit to look at the impact on schools. This is happening not only at PS 75, but other schools as well. So we're asking for your help to ask the mayor and potentially also the Attorney General to look into this as a school equity issue.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to our youth education group. Okay, we're going to speak at the end. Okay. So Jody, followed by Taisha Talk. I think those are our final speakers from PS 75.
Hi, and thanks for having us here. I'm also a parent at PS 75. We've had a lot of concerns that Maya outlined very nicely. We feel that even a very rudimentary cost-benefit analysis of the situation shouldn't have been burdened. It's really just too much for our community to bear. The costs are extensive. We've done a lot of work already around Vision Zero, as Maya mentioned, at that corner in 95th Street. All that work would be undone, all those efforts, the construction of the street, etc. Another issue that we haven't really raised is that PS 75 is one of the few schools
in our district that is really well represented in terms of the demographics of our community. It's an integrated school where many schools in our community are quite segregated. We're having a real issue right now with enrollment. We're way under enrolled, and if this project goes forward, we are really going to see some substantial drop off on those numbers, even more than we already have. So, yeah.
Thanks, Taisha.
Buenas tardes. Como padre de familia de la escuela CB7,
As a parent of CB7,
creo que lo más importante en nuestra comunidad son nuestros niños y su seguridad.
I think the most important thing in our community is our children and their safety.
En la calle 95 y la avenida de West End Avenue,
96th Street and West End Avenue.
hemos visto hace un par de meses la muerte de una señora.
We've seen recently the death of a woman.
Y es aún más preocupante la seguridad y bienestar de los estudiantes.
And we're very worried about the security of the students.
Ya que es una calle que necesita más seguridad para ellos.
Because in the street we need more safety for them.
Eric?
One thing for coming, you guys came out to a YO meeting a couple weeks ago. You after you read the article, and one, we need to raise attention to this. We went through this 163, and it is a long, drawn-out battle, but public pressure and raising the profile, is one of the weapons in our arsenal, since sometimes the law technically is not on our side. So you have our commitment to that, and we can look at a resolution. What other meetings we can facilitate, and there's a lot more experienced members on the board than I. We have some other angles in here, but we've been with the 163 PTA for a long time, helping in their fight, and they're still holding on. But it is the point about the impact on the school is real, because people see what's on the wall and they leave, and it makes enrollment issues difficult. The people who have the means to get out do, which further homogenizes the student population, and it's something we all need to be very sensitive to on a larger issue, what it's doing to our public schools development. So you come in. Mark?
I think we'll move on. Peter Arnson is next.
Hopefully, I'm going to write about it.
Followed by Deborah Travis.
Hi, I'm here to speak on a very different note. I'm with the Columbus Amsterdam PID. I'm here to call attention to the blue events calendar, which is outside on the table. This month we have a number of things happening, with starting off with a history talk, and then also a tour. There's a concert at St. Michael's, combining jazz and folk with El Jair Latino, one of our notable local organizations. And then on the 14th, we have our Family Days, which this year will start off on Columbus Avenue. Sunday, June 14th, we'll be closing down 106 to 110th on Columbus, where we'll have e-waste recycling, learn to ride a bike, and Flavors of the World, a taste of Bloomingdale restaurants, where we'll have 10 of our local restaurants, 10 out of the 100 that are between 96th and 110th Street. We'll also have local organizations that have activities, and we'll have city agencies that are working to make our city better and giving out educational information.
Thank you, Peter.
You learn to ride a bike for children or for adults? If you tell me you're coming, I will bring out a bike that you can use to learn to ride a bike. And it's through Bike New York. They ask you to register, but then after they leave, we have volunteers that work with people that don't have bikes and such. It's basically learning to balance on a bike without pedals, and then you put the pedals on your bike.
Deborah Travis?
Hi, my name is Deborah Travis. I am a nurse at St. Luke's Hospital, and I'm here to speak on the issue of safety and the problem we have in New York City with pedestrian safety. I've been an emergency department nurse for almost 40 years. The last few years I've been here in New York, and I've been quite horrified by the severity of the injuries that we see here and the frequency. And I was very excited when I heard that we were going to participate in Vision Zero, and I wish that I was seeing more of a difference. I'm really sad to say that today, there was a gentleman who is a member of your neighborhood who was struck by a van yesterday, severely injured. And this isn't the way a city like this should be. We really have to come together and find a way to make it a livable city so that the people that need to drive and walk and ride bicycles can exist in a safe way. So that's what I'm here to ask you to do, whatever you can to support and move in that direction.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all who came tonight to express their views on this issue. We will continue to work as a board and as a community to advance those concerns and to prioritize them. Before we move into the elected officials' reports, I'm seeing a lot of young kids in the room, and I realize that, and they're with parents, and I just wanted to make a quick announcement that my father is actually here tonight, David Caputo. He's on the west side, he's here on the side. He's never been to a community board meeting before, so we certainly get a good flavor for local government tonight, so thanks for coming, Gab. Moving into elected officials, I think I saw Helen here. Is our Councilmember Rosenthal here to say a few words, and then we'll turn over to Tara Klein and David Bailey next.
Hi, great to see everyone. How are you? Wow, it's a full house tonight. Really? Is everyone here? Did you count? It's like a really big number. Okay, I know, we have to move on. So, I want to talk about just a couple of things. Yeah, I definitely want to talk in support of your resolution that's in support of my LPC bill. So thank you very much for that. And I'll be interested to hear the dialogue among the full board. I'm excited about it. We've had 7 council member colleagues sign on to this from, I believe, every borough, because Debbie Rose signed on from Staten Island. We even bipartisan support, because Eric Ulrich signed on, so it's all very exciting. And the rest of it, as you'll discuss tonight, is really to empower the community boards to have a second look. You know, it's so interesting, some of the historic groups are not wild about it because it, quote unquote, slows down the process. And I couldn't be more delighted that it slows down the process, because it gives you, as community board members, a more meaningful opportunity to look at the last product. So I'm really excited about that. Also, in terms of LPC, as you probably know, and I heard that some PS75 parents testified, LPC is about to come out with their final map for the extension of the historic district. It does not include the PS75 block. It's kind of a strange little carve out. It also does not include some buildings along Broadway. I'm not happy about what they presented to me, the map that they showed me, and I made it very clear at that meeting, but I've since raised it to the city hall level that just how incredibly, critically important the PS75 block in particular is. I agree that the Broadway is also very, very important, but I did, just to sort of add fuel to the fire, if you're thinking about writing a letter on this, you know, I did get them to admit that they noticed it was a soft spot. There's no targeted developer right now, and no one is contemplating doing anything there. But and having it be historic doesn't mean that it couldn't, you know, still be a soft spot. But I found that very disturbing. You know, while there might be an opportunity for a high-rise across the street on the northwest corner of 96th and West End Avenue, because those buildings were never in the map to begin with, the Exxon building, for example. I still firmly believe we should not have a high-rise as part of the entrance to the Henry Hudson or to the park. So unless anyone has a good argument, I'm fighting to the death on this one. I mean, conversations with Deputy Mayor Glenn, she knows how I feel, and she, I think she assured me that she's thinking seriously about it. So she'll be hearing from me every day. Yeah.
The school is different, but the other two corners have high-rise buildings, and in fact, coming off the street, I think a well-designed building there would not be an inappropriate thing. Right next door along Riverside, you have tall buildings, so it's not really blocking a view that was there already. So just from a textual architectural realistic standpoint, I don't think that's necessarily.
No, that's helpful to hear. I mean, I think there's an added layer of the school building there is solid. There's no reason, unlike PS 199, where I've already said over my dead body, will you do anything there? At PS 199, there are PCBs in the ground where you might be able to make the argument that it could be beneficial to just raise the building. At 75, it's a strong, solid school. I just wanted to add that in. I understand it might be a different point. Well, that's lost anyway, but okay. So are you saying, Gabby, just the one, or would you? Oh, okay. Well, that's gone. I mean, we don't have any choice on that one. No, that's all right, but you still stand firm on PS 75? Correct. Okay, sorry, I wanted to make sure I didn't mishear you. Jay?
Helen, we have a resolution on our calendar tonight asking to restore the original boundaries of the historic district. My question is, since you met with the city, what was their rationale for carving out that block and the stretch along the broad?
I think that, on the surface, what they said was it wasn't in their original plan in the first place. So they're very careful about the wording. And, when I said, hey, you're going against the original plan, they said, no, the original plan did not have it. Now, under the last administration, they did a mapping where they added that block in, and they added in west of Broadway. So their argument is they're going back to the original plan. Now, scratch one layer beneath the surface, and these are soft spots for development. Different administration, different goals.
Isn't it the case, however, that the proposal on which a public hearing was held is the one that you want to preserve?
Correct. I mean, that's a good catch. I don't know how you wrote your thing, but that's the way to phrase it, because from their perspective, they're very confident about the original line.
We worded it to restore, to designate the entirety of the proposal as this element.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, my bill won't pass before LPC has this final hearing. So it's currently scheduled for the 23rd, June 23rd. It's very disappointing. I'm going to zip through the last things. My last housing clinic is going to be on Wednesday on secession rights, preferential rights, non-primary residence, and of course there's access to free lawyers on any topic. Along those lines, city council is getting very engaged in renewal of the rent laws. and also in, putting out new 421A, a new 421A plan. Nick may have gone through it, I don't know, where your committee is on it. The mayor and the council certainly are in sync, saying don't do a straight extender, that it should be improved. I think the city council is not spoken as body. I would argue that the assembly's version for rent regulation is excellent, and you know, I'm a fan. And city council is going to Albany tomorrow to support that. We're starting our senior food bag program again, so that's very exciting. Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm responding to everything. And I have flyers on over there on the senior food bag program, the housing clinic, and my usual update. I'm going to cut it short there because we talked about all these things. But lots of things happening in the council, a lot of budget hearings. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry. Beacon. Oh, yeah, right. In response, that's what this was. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jason. So everyone knows Jason's here, thank goodness, because he knows what's going on. In response to your letter about the last minute cuts to the Beacon program, you know, the council went nuts over it because it became clear in our hearing that they had basically reallocated after-school program funds to the renewal schools, which meant that our district would lose all the after-school funding. They backtracked within 24 hours and restored all the $27 million. I'm not sure that will cover all Beacon funding though, because we did lose through another contracting process some of our after-school programming for elementary school kids, 48 slots. So I am fighting to get additional funds added to the budget for these programs. So thank you for that letter.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess Eric and then Paige.
Long time no see.
Our PS75 people are here tonight and talk about their latest public battle against the friendly neighborhood developer who wants to build next to them. I know you've been supporting them now.
Sorry, I thought they were talking about the LPC line, but yes, that's
So,
7-Eleven.
Thank you for that. Obviously, you know, the lines of power are not equal often when the public schools take on the developers, so they need all the help they can get, and having you at their side is better. So
Thank you.
for
We've
that.
made some headway. We had a great meeting with Department of Buildings and alerted them to a number of violations and things that where they were doing work that they didn't have permits for. But we're going to stay on top of that, and I appreciate all the hard work at the school.
So,
There was a playground accident over there the other day that I'm trying to get some emergency help for as well.
And I also want to thank you for all your help for Weston Secondary, the new middle school, and continue to raise, you know, the issue there that the lease for the space, you know, lease is only 4 years left. DOE or SCA has not re-upped the lease yet with the developer, and as long as that is not re-upped, it inhibits their ability to make capital improvements in the school, and at some point it becomes a problem. So I know you have
Absolutely.
are working on it and Gail and everyone, but at
We
some
brought
point,
it
this
up.
becomes a bigger problem than it is now, and to use your continued sense of urgency
Yeah.
on the SCA.
Thank you. We brought it up at the hearing on, I think it was Monday. I don't even know what day it is anymore. So it was last week, and maybe it was Thursday. And Lorraine Brillo, you know, assured us that 20-year lease coming down the road, and I don't trust them as far as I can spit, so I can't. Thank you.
Just a quick thing. First of all, when you get intro 791 passed, which I support, you might want to consider a parallel type of resolution for land use, because this applies to buildings that get variances and then modify them. And there are several going on right now on the Upper West Side. I won't take time, I'll call you about them, where landmark 74 7-Elevens were granted for changing use, and now that use is expired because it's taken too many years. to get the project going, and in this boom time, the land uses are changing, which are requiring further changes to the building. So it seems that once you get a variance, it doesn't matter anymore. So
And that goes through city planning directly?
Through BSA or city planning.
Yeah, I have something in on that, so we should talk. I just haven't pressed it to go forward because I.
The developers have one point of view, but I work for some, I would like to think, preservation friendly people, and they wouldn't mind going back to the community because they are in the community and want to be part of it. They don't want to be as, oh, it's that building. We have too much of it, so I'd like to follow up with you about that.
Yeah, could you call Sarah Mallory in my office? She's my new legislative director.
Okay, great,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna start from our federal elected officials. We wanna again thank folks. Unless Diana, would you like to go up next? Yeah, why don't you come up and then we'll go to our elected officials reports.
Good evening, everybody. A few announcements from our office. As you may already know, because most of the packets are already full, we are beginning our June series, Leadership Development Series with the community board members. If you haven't done so already, please sign up. You can go to our website to get that information. I have a packet. There's information at the back table. You can sign up as well. Thank you to everybody who came out to celebrate our grand opening of our storefront up in Harlem. That was a great event. We appreciate you coming. June 15th is the date of our second community board reception. This is open to all community board members and board staff. That's 6 to 9 at the American Museum of Natural History, June 15th. Also, the council member talked about all the regulation reform, hopefully coming up in Albany. On June 9th, we are sending a bus up there. If you want to come, hold up a sign to say whatever, please join us. The bus will leave at 7 a.m. from 125 Barclay Street and will return to that same location around 6 p.m. If you would like to reserve a seat on our bus, you can go to homesrally15.eventbrite, and Bright is spelled BRITE.com, or you can call our office and get the information that way. And finally, I'll just say two other things. We're doing another day of action June 12th to help spread the word about Summer Meals Program. This is the DOE program. And it's really important that the word gets out because historically DOE has sent the word out after school is already let out. So that's not helpful to parents and students. And I'll leave it there. Please get our packet at the back table. Thank you.
Moving into reports from elected staffers, and again, thanks to all the elected staffers for keeping your remarks to 1 minute, and if possible, please keep them germane to the CB7 district. Jackie Blank is up first. If other folks could just make their way to the front, Laura Atlas, Tara Klein, David Bailey, thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry, that's really loud. My name is Jackie Blank, and I'm here from Congressman Adler's office. I just want to speak about one really big issue today. For the last couple of months, I've been coming here and talking about the USA Freedom Act, which was the Congressman's response to the anticipated lapse of the Patriot Act, which happened on Sunday at 12:01 a.m., actually Monday. So the USA Freedom Act reforms the way that metadata about phone information is collected by the federal government, which is a huge issue for civil liberties in this country. So the USA Freedom Act, of which the Congressman was one of the main sponsors in the House, passed the Senate today with no amendments, and it's going to be signed by the President shortly. So that's incredibly exciting news on our front. And we have a lot of other information in our newsletter, which if you ran out of copies, there's more information on our website. Thank you.
Good evening, CB7. Okay, two things, one very quick, one an event. The first thing is, as many of you may have seen, the New York Times wrote a long piece about nail salons. Everyone look down at your nails and think about this. We were really happy to see that they wrote this piece because we had written a report last September about a lot of the issues that were touched on. Fortunately, the New York Times had the ability to provide a reporter to work on the story for 13 months to track down nail technicians to speak with. DOH is recognizing that this is a problem, the governor is recognizing that this is a problem, and we're so happy to see that reforms are already taking place. You'll notice when you go into your nail salon now, there will be an employee
and consumer bill of rights hanging out. Look out for those. If you don't see them, you can call TCA, you can call us, and we'll make sure that they're posted. The next thing is.
I can just interrupt for a second on that, because I think this is an important issue for a lot of Upper West Siders. There were also things in the stories about sort of conduct and protocol for going into a nail salon in terms of asking whether or not they paid, how they paid staffers. Is that something that the public advocates were working on too, or is that?
So what you will see on the actual employee bill of rights that's being posted are everything from the standards of how people should be paid according to the minimum wage and above, and how people should be paid with tips included. So yeah, I mean, feel free to go into your nail salon and ask. I know I went to the nail salon earlier and I asked them about it. Feel free to do that. You will see all the information you need to figure out if this place is in compliance. We are still working on a couple of other parts of it though, namely the toxic trio. If you read about that, we're still trying to work on ways to regulate that, and that's proven to be a little more difficult, but a lot of people are taking interest, so we're excited. The next thing, it's Pride Month, everybody, so we're having a big event. We're going to be having an event at Hyacinth's Heaven on Adams and Powell and about 125th Street. Free food, free refreshments. The public advocate will be there. We're going to be honoring local LGBTQ leaders. You're all invited. We hope to see you there. You can go on our website to see the event. You can look at our Twitter and our Facebook. It's all over the place. We hope to see you all there. Thank you.
David Bailey is up next, followed by George Ross.
Hi, I'm Tara Klein from State Senator Brad Hoylman's office. Couple quick updates from Albany. We have just a couple of weeks left in the legislative session. We have a lot left to do up there. High on our priority list is strengthening and renewing the rent laws, as well as working on ethics and campaign finance reform. One other thing I wanted to mention that we're working on Memorial Day, we released a report on LGBT veterans. Many of whom were discharged from the military under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And there's actually a pretty disappointing legacy of that in terms of how these veterans can access benefits. So we're looking at introducing legislation that will help restore those benefits at the state level to these LGBT vets. So that's very exciting. Our work as ranking member of the Environmental Conservation Committee continues. We had a very successful forum on climate change a couple of weeks ago in Albany, and just really got some information about what's going on and what we can do to strengthen our laws up there for climate change. And then finally, I announced this last month, but just quickly, we have an event coming up this Thursday. It's called Oil Spill on the Hudson. We actually rebranded it because there's been a lot of accidents lately that we're concerned about. So we're really going to be digging into those environmental issues. We'll have some panelists from different environmental organizations speaking. It's this Thursday at 6:30 down at the XVA Theater on 23rd Street. So I hope to make it. The flyers. Sure, Andrew.
I'm a little disappointed that every state official doesn't come up and speak and say one of the pressing problems that we have to solve before we go home for the season is the next MTA 5-year capital program. This program is $13 billion unfunded, which means no new cars for the R32, R46, I mean, a whole bunch of fleets, no new CBTC unlike to relieve the overcrowding, which everybody is experiencing, no new signals, no phase 2 of 2nd Avenue up to 125th Street. I mean, the list goes on and on. Why isn't this a priority?
Thank you for bringing that up, Andrew. And I agree. You know, our office has been outspoken on this. We need to fund our capital plan, and it seems like it's getting pushed to the bottom of the agenda, and we're not happy with that. I believe that Grass is going to be in Albany tomorrow, speaking with some of the senators. So maybe we'll have an update soon. I know it's something we're continuing to press on. We'll keep posted. It's a critical issue. I agree.
So as a ranking member on the Senate Housing Committee, Senator Espai is very focused on this. We have a clock in our office right now that says that the red laws is about to expire in 12 days. So that's really what we're focusing on, posting photos of this countdown clock. repeatedly to emphasize the urgency of this. Senator Escott introduced the Tenant Protection Act of 2015, which among other things will repeal vacancy control as well. Tomorrow night we do have a housing forum in Washington Heights. Next week there are buses going up to Albany to discuss housing issues. There's flyers in the back. And one other little thing, next Sunday we're having our 5th track meet at Riverbank State Park. So if you know any kids in grades 3 through 8 that are interested in running track for a morning, it's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Thanks.
By Max Weiss, from the Assembly Member of the Law Office, and Joseph Simmons, the Assembly Member of the Law Office.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm George from Senator Serrano's office. I know David touched on the pro-tenant legislative package. One of Senator Serrano's bill, S951, was included in that package, which was a bill that would prohibit a landlord from increasing the rent on a vacant affordable unit by 20%. And stop the landlord from pushing that unit closer to the decontrol threshold. Usually when a rent exceeds $2,500 a month, it is no longer rent regulated. So this legislation would try to put an end to that. While speaking on legislation, the Senator also passed 2 bills in the state Senate recently, both related to parks. One about parkland alienation that would make the process of acquiring public park space for private use more rigorous and transparent. It would require the municipality to provide proper documentation, authorize the public park space, and to also be more accountable for replacing that space. The other one prohibits the littering in state parks. And thank you all.
Okay, Max Weiss next, and then Justin, and then Bryce Pear. And then last but not least, Vivian Franklin from Councilmember Levine's office.
Good evening, Community Board 7. All right, so leading off, I'd say the CARE Act was passed. It's a new bill that the Assembly member sponsored that will make it easier for care instructions to be given after someone leaves the hospital. Very exciting. Governor needs to sign it. We've heard a lot about fighting for affordable housing. Get on the bus June 9th. Sign up infos in the hall. Other legislation that's up is limiting New Yorkers' exposure to e-cigarettes. They're new, they're popping up a lot, and she has introduced a bill to include them under the state's Clean Indoor Air Act that will hopefully pass. We've successfully banned the sale of them to minors and other bannings of them. So continuing on that, and Senior Day is coming up June 12th. We've opened a wait list. It's happening in the natural history. It's an annual tradition. So if you're interested in coming or know a senior, come to call our office. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Max. Somebody was here earlier, I'm not sure if you connected with him about the, Assembly member was involved about dogs in restaurants.
Did not connect with anyone.
George and Michelle have his contact information, so you should, George and Michelle, raise your hand so Max can,
Thank you.
In outdoor cafes, that is, not inside the restaurants. Justin Simmons from Assembly Member of Donald's office.
Good evening, everyone. The Assembly member is currently in Albany for the session. As you know, rent regulations and tenant protections are the priority issue right now. He's working hard to address them, including specifically 421A. He's very concerned about some of the proposed changes that have been made to it as of now, and we'll see whether it comes up as a standalone bill, included a larger package. It's likely a larger package. Additionally, as mentioned, Pride Month is coming up. The Assembly member had the opportunity to travel to Ireland about a month ago to help advocate for marriage equality, which did pass on May 22nd. So Ireland was the first nation worldwide to pass it by a popular vote. Last thing, there are other issues that the Assembly member is currently working on in Albany, legislatively speaking, such as corrections issues, education issues, including trying to secure more funding for our schools and environmental protection. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Bryce Pear. I'm here representing Assemblymember Godfrey, as Elizabeth said.
Andrew, I would like to emphasize that it is a severe problem that the MTA's capital budget is unfunded. And I couldn't agree with you more. I'm sure the Assembly member would back me up on that. I'll just talk about two pieces of legislation that he authored that passed today on the floor of the Assembly. The Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act passed the Assembly for the 8th year in a row. We're hopeful very much that this year the bill will move through the state Senate. The governor has said he wants to make it a big priority. Last Wednesday, the Assemblyman Godfrey's New York Health Act passed the Assembly. It would establish a single-payer universal healthcare system in New York State. It passed with about 92 votes out of 150 in the Assembly. And although obviously it's going to be a big uphill fight in the state Senate, you have to start somewhere. Assemblyman Godfrey introduced the same marriage equality bill for a decade, medical marijuana legislation for more than a decade. So even though things often move slowly in Albany, this is a very promising first step for the universal health care in New York State. And he's thrilled. He's been working on it for a long time. Thank you.
Last but not least, Sabine Franklin from Councilmember Levine's office.
Hello, thank you. Good evening, Community Board 7. So just 3 updates. The City Council passed Intro 736, which is to create the People's Law Firm, also known as the Office of Civil Justice. So this expands civil legal services to people facing life-altering court decisions such as eviction, deportation, and child custody cases. We are also having our health fair in 2 weeks. Thank you. So we're also having our health fair in 2 weeks on June 14th. This is at Riverbank State Park on 145th and Riverside Drive. So I invite everyone to attend. We'll have health screenings. DOT will come and do bike helmet fillings, up to 350 people. We'll give away food. It's going to be all day from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So I hope to see everyone out there. And tonight is also my last night representing Community Board 7 with Councilmember Levine. I'll be moving on to obtain the PhD program in 2016. And I hope you have a wonderful summer.
Congratulations, Mark, would you like to?
The council member had probably the most unusual rally in terms of park support on the steps of City Hall, where they actually erected a little mini park right there on the steps.
Yes.
I was wondering if there's an update on how that's going in the budget, because the absence of adequate funding for, especially for capital funding for parks, is an issue that our board is concerned with consistently.
Thank you, Mark. So yes, we did recently have a rally that was very well attended, and we are advocating for more parks funding in the executive budget. So that is a continuing ongoing discussion. I believe there are a couple of parks hearings coming up this month as well that we're happy to forward you information. So if the Parks Committee chair could testify, that would definitely help us out in terms of advocating for more capital and discretionary funding in the executive budget. I will, definitely. Yes.
And at that rally, it was clear that there's such a small amount of funding, $23 million for the whole city.
Yeah, so I believe that's like 0.1% of the budget, of the entire city budget, so there's definitely, it's not a lot to ask for in that.
One project was $2.5 million itself. Just think about that, $22 million citywide.
Thank you.
Okay. That's the conclusion of the report from our elected staff. We're going to move into the business session now. We have a number of items, especially preservation ones, that will take up the bulk of time, I think, in the business session. Thanks again to Councilmember Rosenthal for her comments, introducing a couple of them that can serve as a precursor to the discussion tonight. So first, I'm going to turn it over to Nick from the Housing Committee.
Okay, I know we have a long agenda, so I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. I think most of us on the board are quite familiar with rent regulation and rent control. This is one of those resolutions that CB7 passes every 3 years to coincide with the sunsetting that's happening this month. Quick stats on rent regulation: there's about 1 million units citywide that are currently regulated. That's down 200,000 units over the last 30 years. We have 30,000 of these units currently on the Upper West Side. That's 43% of all the rental units in CB7. And there are 100,000 units that if the current tenant leaves, those units will become deregulated through vacancy decontrol right now. So our resolution, very similar to the resolution we passed 3 years ago, says rent regulation is important to our community, and we want to urge our legislators who have talked quite a bit about it tonight to extend it, and most specifically to strengthen it in two of the most important ways, and that is to get rid of vacancy and luxury decontrol, which are the primary drivers for losing affordable units in our city. So with that, we have one speaker from the public, Mr. Richard Barr. You're up.
What I want to urge the community board to do in terms of rent regulations, the tenant advocates, including myself, going up there to Albany this year, aren't even talking about it because they think it's a lost cause at the moment. But until New York City gets back home rule, control over its own rent laws from the state, it's going to be more and more of the same. We're asking for an improvement, and at best we get an extender, but for the last 20 years, the state has been chipping away, weakening these laws, and you know how many rent-regulated apartments there are now as compared to before the deluge in 1997 and thereafter. So I would urge this community board and every other one in the city to start demanding that the state legislature and the governor repeal the Erstat law, which was passed in the 1970s and took home rule away from us. Because until the elected officials who are responsible to New York City voters are the ones making the rent laws, as opposed to upstaters who don't face us at the polls and can just take real estate money for their votes, it's going to be more of the same. So please start demanding that, and I hope around the city if people start demanding that, maybe they'll listen and all of you will start listening anyway. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. In fact, CB7 has passed a resolution, I can't remember how long ago, a year or two, against advocating for exactly what the gentleman was saying. So with that, I open it up to questions, comments, etc.
Sorry about the mic, it's hard
Hi there. I apologize for not attending the committee meeting on this. I missed it, that it was on the agenda. I have a couple questions, and I'll ask all my questions so it's not back and forth at first, or at least I'll try. You say your community board 7 supports the right of all residents to live and raise a family in their home communities. I don't quite understand what a home community is, and I'm not quite sure what a right is in this case, but before you answer that one, I just heard what us, so I don't have to try to verify that. You also say that it continues to lose affordable rent regulated, not the committee, regulated units with vacancy decontrol and luxury decontrol. Legislators for the state put through these methods for apartments to leave rent regulation. It would seem to me that that's going to happen no matter what. Shouldn't our focus be on instead of worrying about the ones, in addition to worrying about the ones leaking at the bottom of the pot, putting more into the top of the pot, the way that Mayor de Blasio is working on getting 20,000 new affordable housing units into the city every year. It just seems like a crazy thing that a family that has $250,000 in income needs subsidization. So it's kind of two questions.
So I'll say on the second one about the leaking on the bottom versus the new units on the top, I couldn't agree more. It's absolutely an issue of preserving what's there and expanding, because what was the stat? 80,000 people applied for those 55 units in the 80-20 building in our district. So I mean, there's obviously a gigantic need for it. I think this bill, this resolution is about rent regulation, because that's, that's the political topic of the day in Albany. And just the way it works politically up there is that this item is kind of treated in isolation. And so we are kind of speaking on the same wavelength that Albany is speaking on this time. That being said, we are totally for the housing committee to have, and we'll continue to advocate for kind of new affordable housing programs, advocating for de Blasio's within some sections. There's some division on how he's going to do it, but advocating for how do we get new units, especially in our neighborhood.
And what does that mean, the right of our residents to be a home community?
So it's a paraphrasing of one of our core principles, and it's the thinking is just because if you live in a unit for a very long time, just because your neighborhood gentrifies around you, doesn't mean that somehow just because you do not have enough money or somehow kicked out of what is your own neighborhood. And the thinking behind that is that housing is not a pork belly traded on the Chicago Exchange. Housing is kind of the way you core identify as a person, and your community is what makes you you. And we should not treat housing the same way we treat stock treasures.
And last point, we all know of all the stories about people abusing the rent regulation, which people are living in rent control. Is there any way to add to this that we would request, that we would like to see some money, some effort put into investigating fraud in rent regulation?
It's an interesting point. It's not part of the political debate in Albany, so I'm reluctant to put it in this resolution. That being said, I think it's a topic worthy of discussion for ways to kind of improve rent regulation. And I think what happens is it's such a key part of so many people's lives in New York that there is just this epic battle to preserve rent regulation every 3 years. And the battle lines are drawn as such with politics in Albany that it's really hard to kind of change the system as it is. I'm pretty sure that if rent regulation never existed and there was actually the political will in New York State to create a giant affordable housing program, we would never come up with a system that looks like the current rent regulation system we have now. There's all sorts of incentives in the system that are counterproductive. That being said, it is what we have, and it is a million people live in these units in the city. We have to preserve it. And so I think the thoughts about how we expand, change, and improve are almost a separate issue, and that's kind of the way we've treated the housing issue so far.
Okay, that's all my questions. My comment would be that I find it very difficult to vote to support a system that is so deeply flawed.
Well, I tell why, so just we'll type it.
I think Sue's making some very good points because I grew up in city-sponsored housing, not simply regulated, but simply city-sponsored housing. So I could not have grown up in New York City if it weren't for that, and I realized there are very limited dollars for this. And to be implicitly providing subsidies for people earning over $250,000 a year seems to me to be a waste. I understand you can't pick it apart. It's a package. I mean, we're pretty much straight-jacket into either supporting the package or going against the package. But I guess my feeling is similar to Sue's. I'm speculating that maybe we can craft a resolution that would indicate what we would view as a more ideal system, a system where the precious dollars that we have for subsidizing housing goes to people who need it, and just isn't a scattergun approach, it's basically applied to a whole range of apartments, some of which are occupied by some very wealthy people.
That's what you're saying. It does make sense in that there's no means testing whatsoever to a certain extent in rent regulation, and it's an odd system that it is that way. If we were to design it now, we would never come up with a system that's that way. That being said, this resolution should still stay the way it is because it's the message we're trying to sell to Albany. I would totally be for some type of resolution that said, like luxury control permanently takes an apartment out if the owner makes, I believe it's $195,000 for 2 years in a row. On the surface, that's extremely reasonable. Why should the building owner be subsidizing a person making $200,000 a year?
Well, let me just point out, it's not just the building owner, it's us as taxpayers, because we're usually
the building owner takes
subsidized, right? But we are subsidizing those people, and there's a limited amount of money to subsidize housing and to be.
So I want to say that is, the problem is not the 200,000, the problem is that that unit is permanently removed under the current system. And if there was a rule that said the building owner can charge market rate rent for the duration of that rich person living in the unit, totally for it. The problem is, this law was passed with the illusion of trying to not subsidize rich people, when really it's a way to deregulate units in the first place. So that's why you can modify luxury control in different contexts.
I totally understand the argument. It's this complicated package that we have, and you have to, and basically you have to do the legislature goes for it or doesn't go for it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe just in our resolution, we could say that we support the package, but maybe ideally, more of the subsidies could be directed at people who need them, as opposed to just being having a scattergun approach to everyone. And maybe that would be a better resolution for us to adopt.
Let me give you comments on that in that context.
I think we have a problem with the concept. It's the apartments that are regulated, not the people. And so that's what we're voting on. I think the other issues are valid issues and good concerns. But I think we should support this because this is what, if this doesn't pass in Albany, if it expires and goes away, there's 1 million people affected. It's a terrible thing. So I think we should separate these two issues and bring up the issues being raised at another time if this is a serious concern. But I think we should support this.
The final comment is I agree we should support it. However, I guess to me an ideal resolution would indicate that there could be and there should be a better system. But given that there isn't at this time, this is, we support what's there, but we also support improving the system.
Okay, I think that we're in an emergency situation, and to complicate the issue at this point would be extremely detrimental to all people, and I think I'm one in a rent stabilized apartment. If I did not have rent stabilization, I would not be living anywhere in the region. I think that if we want to think about this very slowly and very calmly and come up with some suggestions, we have all of next year to do it. But this is not the time to just throw something together to address an assortment of issues that would require a lot of thought. So while I'm not opposed to thinking about this and coming up with a housing plan, it's extremely complicated and cannot be done now.
Yeah, my response is, well, I'll ask a comment as usual and over personally. I raised my son for the part of his life that I had exclusively between 11 and 18 at Independence Plaza. And you recall a couple of years ago, we had the Housing Association that was seriously fighting the owner's attempt to get out of the program, actually not an attempt to get out of the program. So Nicholas remains in his apartment that we had, which was of course subsidized the Metro program rental in those days. And the building converted into market. As long as Nicholas remains in his apartment, his rent will be safe and increments that are affordable to him. He makes deals with 250, but he makes 50 salary. Today, the one bedroom in Independence Plaza, and everyone knows where it is, just above Manhattan Community College. One bedroom is $5,000. So that's kind of the absolute fact of the picture, the point of this whole thing. So when Nick talks about saving and regulation and protecting the affordable housing stock that we have, that's the whole point. And I don't think that these subsidiary formulations can really get to the point. It's really the plan the federal have, which is being eroded rapidly, as we all know.
Okay. I understand where you're coming from and where everybody's coming from, but no distinction is being made between the mega apartment owner and small building owners. Small building owners don't make anything like what everybody's talking about. We don't have rents approaching what everybody's talking about. Yet our assessments keep going up, our taxes keep going up, water and sewer bills keep going up. heating bills keep going up. So my question is, if you're gonna ask for regulations of one piece of the marketplace, are you going to also ask for a stay, a hold on taxes and other kinds of costs? Because for a small homeowner, it's a whole different ballgame.
Fair enough.
Nick, just a semi-technical question. I think you said in your presentation that when you're talking about strengthening the existing law, you were talking about computer vacancy and reduction of the control. So you mentioned strengthening twice, and there are other proposals in already to change the income threshold, to change the rent threshold and so forth. And I was just concerned that the phrase strengthen could cover a whole host, and as long as you have the specific.
It's funny you notice that. I noticed if I was sitting here too that it did seem redundant. I would think of a friendly amendment to strike the word friendly to the first, therefore.
Well, I would do it from both.
Or from both, exactly.
And that way, we can go on to actual specific.
No.
My second question is, Howard mentioned the fact that he felt that this was a package that had to be voted on, yes or no, and you broke it down into actually two separate parts of the resolution. Was it your plan to take a vote on each one separate?
Well, the housing committee, we voted, everything in the first therefore is kind of like the boilerplate that we've used year over year. But we've been talking about this at the housing committee for 3 years since it last happened, and vacancy and luxury control are the two things that we talked about most. So to our committee, those were the two most important areas for strengthening. So we singled those out as that's what the housing committee is interested in. That's where we put it.
I disagree in the sense of how that we can't separate, we can separate. We're really two very different things. You would like.
No, I thought it was being presented as a package.
That's why.
It is being presented as a package.
That's what I'm asking. Because to me, it would make sense to vote on them separately, because they're really two very separate issues. Extending the existing laws is one thing, and vacancy and luxury control, in fact, were enacted, 50 years after rent control and stabilization was established. So really two very different concepts. So my suggestion would be to present them as two separate parts, part A and part B. But if you want to keep them together in one resolution.
I'd rather keep them together as one resolution. I think we more than have the votes here, and so I appreciate the conversation. Mark, yeah.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues that there are ways in which these laws should be re-examined, but I agree with, I think you, that this resolution should, as it has been presented, I think we can have a very interesting conversation about some ways to reimagine subsidies and rent benefits to those who really need them. But I think another part of that conversation should be to reimagine the ways in which supports and developers that are intended to incentivize the creation of new units and to alleviate certain other social goals that we want to advocate for should be part of that conversation too, all of which is too much to try to put into this resolution tonight. It's needed in a warrant on the eve of legislative action as it is. And unfortunately, it seems like every time we get the chance to say something about it, it's always on the eve of something horrible happening. So I would great advice in support of the resolution as presented and advocate my colleagues to support it. And the final add without repeating that I would offer here is that this is, and maybe Audrey is a perfect example, this is middle class lifeline for our community, which is increasingly under pressure to be segregated into the haves and have-nots. And to allow this to expire at all, let alone to reinforce it the way that you're advocating, would be to sound the death knell of anybody in my income and below to be able to be functioning members of this community. And I think that for that reason alone, our core principles call for us to support this presented.
So we have a long agenda for it. That's a great ending comment. Do I have a motion? Call the question? All those in favor, raise your hand. I hope this else is counting now.
This is a potential conflict of discussion that I want to ask about parliamentarian and consult with a couple of other lawyers. This is just related to whether or not, because there is potential interest in if you get into regulated housing, whether or not that needs to get disclosed related to the fees of self-fulfillment.
I think that we should be able to both say, the regulator. Yes, but I would say, yeah, I think it definitely does. And people choose not to, that's their choice.
Did a rule change? Because we didn't, I recall the vote last time, there was no issue.
No, I don't think it's that people have to, but I would discuss this for us. Well, you know, certainly a regulated person would be the beneficiary of voting for the resolution. So if people feel that there is a conflict, then they should say, I live in a regulated apartment. And if they feel they don't have a conflict or otherwise, no one's forced to say it.
I mean, I kind of feel like, does that mean I can't vote in favor of public schools because I have a child who's going to public school? There's no public school here, it's no private school, it's a financial thing. Okay, with that, we now have our ruling. Then, go for it.
In fact, we want to lay on somebody who has a regulated apartment, they have a financial advantage. The rents increase over time. I live in a regulated apartment. It's now rented for 6 times the rent when I first moved in at a market rate. Okay. Secondly, for those who live in regulated apartments, though their rent may be limited on one side, they also are not making money, which sounds like you talk about for a conflict of interest, because although they pay less rent, they have no opportunity to participate in the increase in housing and real estate costs, which anybody who lives and owns an apartment has an opportunity to do. So they may have a lesser rent, but they have less of an opportunity to park. Nobody's making money living in a regular apartment.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those abstaining? And all those in conflict? Well, actually, it's not. Okay. Thank you very much.
34 to 3 to 2 for what?
Moving on to preservation now with Gabby and Jay. They've got a number of items, so they're going to get right to it, I think, right? Thanks to Christian for, yes.
Okay, so we'll try to be brief. This first project is probably the biggest project we have to present. It's 555 West End Avenue. It's at 87th Street in West End. And up until recently, it functioned as a school. It was, it's most recently the St. Agnes School. And the developer bought it and wants to convert it into housing. The first thing you should know is their proposal is not at all going near the capacity of the site. They are not building it out to the full zoning. That's just something you should be aware of. And so the proposal has a large restoration component It has a front facade, a public facade restoration. It has a rear yard, essentially an addition because they're modifying the back, sort of filling in some space. It has creation of a new entrance to the main part of the building that will be at grade and therefore ADA accessible. And then it has, which we'll consider later, a rooftop addition that they propose, and above that, an air conditioning component. So the first part of our resolution focused on everything at the top of the building. And so what's included is a very extensive restoration of this, the beautiful masonry work, replacement of all the windows. And what you're looking at on the left is the west end facade, which is currently the entrance to the building, which is a few steps out of the center. And what you're seeing is the existing, and on the left and on the right is the proposed. And can you, Christian, go to the next slide, because I just want to at the same time show, yes, okay, so that's the side street. And this is the side elevation, again, existing is on the left, proposed is on the right. And so again, we're seeing window replacements and facade restoration. And on 87th Street, where on the left you see a blank wall, I assume that was some kind of like an assembly space. They're creating at grade the main entrance to the apartment building. And so this will be completely ADA accessible, and it's taking the traffic sort of off the main part of the street as well. They were relatively sensitive in cutting the facade, the new doorway into what's a blank piece of facade, and they have a new canopy, a new lighting, and our comments were only that the details of how that doorway was cut in could have a little more elaboration, and that the canopy looked a little bit lightweight for it, and they agreed to go back and reconsider those details. What I don't, and lastly, on the top of the building on the right, on each part, don't change it, on the right-hand side, you'll see on the left elevation, a bricked-in piece of arch, which they're opening up and enclosing as part of the new space. So they're sort of restoring some of the beautiful historic details. In the back of the building, which I unfortunately don't have a drawing of, they're pushing the rear facade out a little bit within the courtyard space and using the same rhythm of the windows that they have around the building, and that facade too, which is visible through an alleyway at 86th Street, but is consistent with the vocabulary of the rest of the building. So the first part of our resolution considers everything except the very top of the building, and we found that the design was reasonably appropriate with the recommendations to look at the actual details of the new entrance. And so, I guess anybody? Yes, so that's the extent of it. Does anybody, do we need to say anything, Jay? Okay, does anybody have any questions?
All the questions.
So then a vote for this first part, which is A, would be for the facade restoration, reconstruction work, the window replacement, all the things I just described. So, all in favor? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 26, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 40. Anybody opposed? A. Anybody, anybody abstaining? Abstaining is a cause. So 40 to 0 to 0 to 0. Thank you. Wow, guys, that's great. So now the next part, can we go back, Christian, to the first picture image again? Because the rooftop addition is actually, they've done some interesting things. The top of the facade, which on the left, yep, that's it. You'll see that it has little, sort of, the top of the building has kind of an interesting kind of crenulated set of features. They're actually closing in some of the openings in the parapet. Restoring, there's a decorative medallion that they're going to restore minus the religious iconography. And then closing in those spaces and leveling it out. So actually one floor that they're adding is actually behind the parapet and doesn't add any height to the building. It's very sort of cleverly built into the parapet design that they're restoring and completing. And then the new rooftop addition is on the right-hand side, you'll see that white, more contemporary looking, gridded set of facades, steel windows in limestone. They're using very, materials that they found elsewhere in the building. And they've located it symmetrically about the center. They did a mock-up. It is visible from the public way. And can you go to the next slide? We'll go down to the side view. There we go. So there's, what's that one about? Yeah, there you see it again on the side. We found that the design of this was reasonably appropriate with the recommendation that they actually, there's a bump on top of that one-story set of windows. We're going to look at that taller bump in part C, so don't ignore that piece of it for a moment. So we found that the actual single-story rooftop addition in design and in massing was reasonably appropriate, even if visible from the public way. We did recommend that they do something to soften the way that the top of the building meets the sky. And it still seems very kind of schematic, and they agreed to look at the details of that. But we found it reasonably appropriate, and so they voted to support that. Does anybody have any questions about that? Yes.
I just want to say that this is so helpful to have the pictures available to us from diagrams and the explanation. And I certainly will support.
I also want to say that we had other organizations come, Joseph from West End Preservation Society, and we had a statement from Landmark West that also found the design sensitive, which sometimes we have a sort of less consensus among the different groups. So if there are no questions, I'm sorry.
I have two questions. On the left from the existing, that mast, has that been truncated and relocated on the right?
You know, that looks like a smokestack that's being anchored by stays.
But on this elevation, it's moved.
You know, it is. It looks like it has been moved to be anchored at the back.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't mistaken.
But honestly, we didn't answer detailed questions about that, I have to say.
The second question is, are they seeking any variance for this under associate or?
Nothing is totally as of right, and as I said, there's also additional capacity that they're not interested in. Okay. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is for B.
Give me 40. Okay.
Opposed? Abstaining? Abstaining your house. Another unanimous 0. Okay, so the last part of this, part C, has to do with the air conditioning equipment, or the mechanical equipment. Yeah, can we go back for a minute? You've seen it here, it's on top, it's that big mass on top of the fenestrated portion. And there is, and it's most visible from 87th Street to Broadway, from the east and looking west, and also looking north along West End Avenue. And for a variety of reasons, we voted to oppose this. The massing we feel is too bulky for it, and in fact, it's not the only alternative. Currently, the rooftop addition is actually usable space, and so because of that, usable to people, like a rooftop terrace. So because of that, they were forced to condense concentrate all the mechanical equipment in a smaller footprint and therefore have to go taller. So we asked them to look at other alternatives and said that we did not find it appropriate. I believe at Landmarks, they had a similar concern when they did vote on this. So, yeah, Jim?
Just quickly for information, this is actually for what had been heard at the Landmarks on the 19th. And as they want to do, they took an action. The negotiations were very positive about the design of the facade restoration, the one-story addition, and one concern that they expressed was the concern that we're expressing in Part C, which is the bulk of the bulkhead and its location, and we asked the applicants to go back and see if they could redesign it and even possibly use that rooftop space that Gabby was talking about. The public testimony, including some of the preservation groups, was all pretty consistent in supporting the overall design, but having concerns about the bulkhead on the roof. So they will come back. We're together with some example of why we're supporting Helen's bill on second look concept, especially on a project like this.
And just if anybody's walking by, you can still see the orange netting on the roof, you can see the massing, and you understand the value of these. So, anybody have any questions? Yes.
Would it be appropriate, and I hear because that is just a monster chilling that's for an office building that's operating 24/7, that you recommend that they look at alternate or combined heating units?
I don't think it's one unit, I think it's still a bunch of units, but it's massed.
They put it together on chiller, that's how they make it efficient. But the thing is, it's just huge. I mean, you could have two-tack units which go underneath the window, like you have in a hotel room, at the back of the building that don't impact so much, as opposed to having these monster size units, which are also going to be very noisy.
I would say we don't want to be specific about the solution, but recommend that they reduce the bulk, because in fact, for a front-facing apartment that doesn't have any rear courtyard, you're not going to want to wall units. So, I mean, I think in general, they still have to comply with the noise codes, the MEA numbers, and so.
I think they're going in, that whole system is inappropriate for a sort of
And I think by asking them to look at alternative configurations, they're going to by necessity have to do that. Okay. So any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Disapprove. This is to disapprove the bulkhead.
Approve our resolution to disapprove the bulkhead, to reduce the bulk of bulk.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
And opposed? Okay, and then abstaining, extension? 0. And no cause, no voting, no cause. Okay, it's 39, 0. So, yeah, what is 176? Mr. Hunt. Okay, so, this next, renovation is actually, this is a building on 76th Street that has sat vacant for a very long time. It's been boarded up and been in deteriorated condition. And so the new owner actually, one of the first things they did was to go inside, basically gut the interior which was falling apart and stabilize it. So structurally now they have new floors in there that will support the future renovation. In doing this, because this is an application for both a rooftop addition and a rear yard addition, they actually shorten slightly the floor to ceiling height, not in a way that affects the exterior facade window positions on the exterior at all, but it allows the rooftop addition to not project us visibly above the cornice. It was be able to be kept a little bit lower. So on the front facade, there's a bunch of restoration work and facade work that's being done, and essentially no difference. Can you go to the next slide, please? Because the rear yard addition is here. Okay, so this just gives it a little bit of context. So let's go to the next one, please. Okay, so this rear yard addition it takes away a little dog-leg piece, which is the existing again is on the left and the proposed is on the right. It takes away the dog-leg 3-story addition that's on the right-hand side of the left addition, of the left rendering, and makes a full width, slightly set back rear yard addition, and then that's 3-story steps back a little bit and then leaves the top floor exposed. This is sitting between a school building to its left, which is to the west, and another addition on the right-hand side. So one thing that this does not create, like a full rear yard, full width rear yard addition, is any kind of funny little shadow for the neighbor. It's just going flat wall to flat wall. And the proposal, as you can see, is basically for storefront kind of infill with brick. And our concern was that it looked very much like a storefront. We felt that the massing was appropriate, but that the fenestration, the windows needed to have more scale and texture, have some more relationship to the neighborhood and to the other rear yards. And so, with the applicant agreed to make those modifications now. You know, he just agreed to that. We don't have anything to show you for that. But with that, we did vote to approve the project. So, questions?
All question?
All in favor?
Oh, yeah, over here. Shelley, I'm 31 in favor?
Opposed?
Yeah, 32. Oh, okay. Opposed?
Two. Oh, which, I'm sorry.
No. Here, I'm going to count. So those opposed, raise your hands. If you are voting no, raise your hand again. If you're voting no, raise your hand again. Okay. 1, 2. So there were 2 no's. Abstaining. 0. For cause. 0.
One thing I forgot to vote, so could you make it 33 to 1?
32 then.
Yes. You got it.
Okay, the next one is going to be 2195 Broadway, which is AT&T. The AT&T store. So we can go to the next one on this. This one I ended up having to upload the whole thing. Okay, so this is the existing condition. This is a storefront renovation. The current and the bottom right photo is the best of the existing condition. This is between 78th and 77th Streets on the west side of Broadway. AT&T is currently in one store. It's expanding to the south to be 2 storefronts. So can we go to the next slide? Keep going. One more, please. And another. As I said, this one I wasn't able to add one more. Okay, so that's page. Go back. I'm sorry, that's it. Okay. So this is the proposal now. And then actually, this is it in context, and then we'll go to another elevation drawing. But they discovered that there are actually some cast iron columns that when they did some sort of taking off of the old facade covering, and they're going to be able to expose those and preserve those. And so the doorway for the store, the entrance is shifting to the south. And they're going to have a logo, which is actually an orange background with the AT&T blue logo. And then the rest of it will become gray and it's metal. It's metal and black cast iron, and then there's a black granite base. And can you go down to the next image? I think we'll have a render that maybe shows it a little better. Yeah, so again, it was more orange in the presentation. I think they're, like whatever's under the current sign. So we voted to approve it as reasonably appropriate to the historic district.
Will the signage be similar to the existing signage, or will it be lower key, like?
I think
It's going to be like this.
It's what it's showing, yeah.
And I had questions about the color choice, but apparently this is AT&T's new color logo. And if you're wondering what the right side is going to be like, since there's no signage on the top, there will be displays and signage in the windows, but they wanted to preserve that original cast iron beam. And on May 19th, this version was approved unanimously at landmarks.
Any questions?
All the question?
All in favor?
Okay, 36 in favor. Opposed? 0. Oh, 1. Sorry. Abstaining? 0 for cause? 0? 1. 1? Okay, 1.
Somebody introduce himself. The next application is 38 West 83rd Street, and this is a legalization of restoration project. Okay. So, can you go, okay, this is just gives you some historical context. Go to the next one, please. There are 5 different elements of this that had to do, in fact, the applicant originally submitted a design that was sort of more simplified, and as they went along, they actually discovered either drawings or pieces of original that, in fact, were more consistent with what was around, but they weren't what was drawn. And so for a number of the pieces that we'll look at in a minute, they have a violation because what they did was different than what they submitted. And in fact, in a number of instances, we found that the elements were reasonably appropriate, and then there was one instance where that was not the case. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So this was grill work, I think.
No, it's the light.
Well, it is the light, but. No, this one was just the hooding. This was that they put a light fixture over the ground level entrance, and this piece actually we found that this violation we do not support as it was. You could see the expansive cabling, that electrical wire that was run, and typically the light is put over the arch piece that's to the left, so we recommended moving it, and so we do not, this is the one piece of the legalization request that we did not approve. So let's go to the next one, I'll show you. So over the transom windows, the skinny windows over the double hungs at the ground level, when they submitted their original drawings, they showed it as single panes, and then they discovered through the drawings or something else that it was more consistent with the originals to have smaller multi-panes, so they put them in. We found it appropriate, and so we said that we're supporting that legalization request. Next one, please. That's just another view in that they would go. Next one, okay. At the top of the building, they had an arch window, which originally they had as a single arch surface, so that's how they rendered it. And then they instead introduced this fan-like detail, which again, although maybe not literally original to the building, felt consistent with other things in the neighborhood, so we supported that. And then next, the planters, we found that fine. That's it. So, with the exception of the light, which we asked them to move, we supported the request for legalization. Any questions? All in favor?
I'm sorry, I've been looking and then you were. I know, I try to be quiet on these things, but this particular one, first of all, I don't know what the story about some of these, but it seems like he's been practicing different architectural styles throughout the building. And I found when you hit the fan light at the top, I said that's enough. This is Thomas Jefferson meets Queen Victoria, and there's nothing sympathetic or contextual about any of the elements that he's done. It's a hodgepodge of what probably looks nice from inside when he's looking out, but we have to look at it. The window buttons seem thin, the light and the bells is the only thing that I could actually give, because at least you could change the lamp, but I just don't think this is worthy in terms of the amount of effort he's put in, and without getting a permit. It just seems crazy to me. So I would urge you to reconsider your vote, or vote halfway, like, whatever. I just think this one is not appropriate. We've given people who've done less egregious things to buildings, we disapproved, and this process was smattering of inconsistencies across the board.
Okay, all of them in favor.
Okay, 25 in favor, opposed? 9 opposed, abstaining. 2 with cause. 0.
And then the last one, I can stop speaking. 55 West 90th Street, so let's go, inward, let's go, okay, this I guess describes, can you go forward again, this one, no, I'm sorry, down, there we go, no, I don't know that. Go again, and go into the line, please. Okay, here we go. This is a drawing that on the left shows the existing condition, on the right shows the proposed condition. It's for, there's a rooftop addition that's not visible from the street, but what we're really looking at is the rear yard addition. So do you think we can make it any bigger? Or
That's what I was trying to do.
There we go, perfect. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that there's an existing 3-story half addition that's got skinny windows and a big window at the bottom next to another one that's got little square windows. And then there's a piece that's set back. And what this application proposes is to even out the fenestration, the window pattern in the existing dogleg addition, and then to infill the space between the dogleg and over to the right, with another piece of addition that doesn't come out as far because it can only go out to 30 feet. And it actually it's only a 2-story addition there, and they propose to have a steel frame and some very thin, and glass. So it's basically a storefront. And our recommendation was to add some more visible structure to the perimeter of the 2-story addition. And in that, we found that it was really perfect. So, questions?
The large window on the second story.
It's a double height space, so I think it's not, I mean, there may be some, I know that. Is that right? It's a double height space? Yes.
From the garden level to the parlor floor, double height?
I believe it is. I don't recall. Can you see if there's a floor plan here? I honestly don't remember. You know, we saw a lot of stuff there, it was a long time ago, I'm sorry. Can you see if going forward gives us a floor plan or?
How's that big side?
I guess there may be storage there, so there may be some options. Okay. Can we go again? I don't know if I have any more images, that's it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Then that's it, I'm sorry, I do not have, I can't tell you, but you're right, it certainly looks like it.
Peculiar.
So it probably has it. So, any call question? Is that correct? All in favor? I think so.
Okay, 32 in favor? I don't know when you raise your hand. Okay, so 33 in favor? Opposed? Two, abstaining? 2, for cause? 0. 33 to 2 to 2 to 0.
So the next item is a resolution in support of the bill that Helen was talking about, City Council H0791. And essentially what this bill was is providing for a second look where the budget has made substantial changes from the original application. what often happens at the landmarks commission is there's a public hearing, there's public testimony, the commissioners will bring comments, and if it's not up to them, they virtually, if it's the minutes, they don't disagree with anything, they take no action, they make some recommendations, and the applicants come back and work with the staff, and eventually they come back to a public meeting where there's no public input, it's just the commissioners taking a vote. What this bill does is provide that if there are significant changes in the original application, and it's defined in the bill as an increase in height, a change in the footprint, or a significant change in the design or materials of the proposal, it requires the landmarks to notify the community board and the council member in whose district the project is located, and it gives a time period of 45 days before the commission can act. The purpose is obviously give the community board, the council member, and the community, which will then be given notice, a chance to evaluate the changes and at least to send in comments to the commission before they take a vote. As I said, and we've had in the past, particularly on individual landmarks like the Apthorpe and the Chatsworth and so forth, where there was a whole process of very significant changes which we never got a chance to look at, evaluate, and comment on. And the last thing the bill does is codify the requirement to notify community boards on every certificate of appropriateness. This is something I wasn't aware of when I first started doing this, but the law actually only requires community board review where it's an individual landmark. By custom, the commission would notify the community boards, but this will actually codify it into law for the first time. Any questions?
So this gives you a little more say about things that have to come around the second time.
Yes.
After month.
Yes.
And gives you more work too.
And we're happy to take it. It's important because when there are big changes, it's very frustrating.
Okay. So I completely understand what this is about, and it's a very worthwhile goal. However, let me try to phrase my question. It has it's been clear to me for years, sad to say, and very sad indeed, because I used to do for years what Jay and Gabby spend a zillion hours doing, and thank you to you for doing it. But it's become very clear to me that the opinions of any of the community boards have, it seems to be zero impact on any action by the LPC, as Jay illustrated tonight in part by the fact that LPC in many cases reaches its decision and rules before our resolutions even get to them, sometimes weeks before. I've given testimony there, I've observed testimony. It appears to me that even if you're trying to establish eye contact with them, that in reading the CB7 resolution, or CB7, but whichever community board it is, that it has zero impact on the commission. So, and what it does. So here's my question. The way their procedure works, and I think Jay mentioned this as well, after they have their public hearing, at which in some cases they say, go do something else, we'd like to see you reduce the height or change the materials or whatever, that's the end of the public process that's the end of the mechanical process by which anybody can even testify at LPC. When the applicant comes back, it's a public meeting. There is no further testimony. Sometimes they will say, oh, the committee board or anybody else, if they happen to know what the changes are, which is the object of this legislation. So if you happen to know what the changes are, sometimes they will say you may submit
your response, but just as we invite our public speakers when they're going to go over 1 minute to submit their written comments for our record, I believe that the impact is similarly 0 on their record. So my question is, if you are going to require, as this does, that they send this category of applications back to the community board, why is there not something that allows us then to come and testify as to what we think of the changes?
If we had our druthers, there would be a second public hearing. Let me give you a little bit of history as to how the bill evolved. We discussed this with Helen a long time ago, in the early fall, and she submitted a request. The way the city council legislative process works, she submitted a request to the staff, the legal staff at the city council, and under the new rules, and somebody can correct me, it's either 60 or 90 days that the staff is supposed to draft the bill for the member. What happened in this case is that several months went by and Helen's office did not get a bill out of the legal staff. And when they inquired about it, they were advised that landmarks was against the concept. And the staff was concerned that it would delay the process of these applications. And they didn't produce a bill. Helen and I spoke about it, and I have a legislative background, so I drafted a bill and gave it to Helen, who gave it to the staff and said, I'm introducing this bill, if you'd like to take a look at it and evaluate it, and lo and behold, they did. The bill that they came back with adopted our request that the law about referrals to community boards be codified. It codified our request that there be a second look with notification. It did not come back with a mandate for a second hearing. The process now will be for the appropriate committee at the city council to hold a hearing, and the bill is subject to amendment, and it's going to be up to us and all the various advocacy organizations to get in there and lobby for some changes in the bill, which will make it even stronger. But this is the bill that the staff came back. It's a giant step forward. It may not be all of what we would like, but this is where we are now. So we should support this bill. And if we feel we can be effective in working with other people and effecting change, we'll do it.
Sure. I don't think I need that. I've worked with landmarks for 22 years, and I think one of the issues here is that nobody wanted to mess with the landmarks law, because if you did, it would diminish it and reduce the teeth that they would have. I think this is the first time that I've seen a bill introduced which is actually quite benign. It will probably bother the Landmarks Commission because it will increase their staff time in terms of the total processing and the duration that a project might get approved. But on the other hand, I think it sends a clear message to the architects who don't get it right the first time, or the owner, or the builder, or whoever they hire, that they can do better. Because we are losing our architectural heritage by diminution and removal with some of these new additions. I'm not saying that change isn't appropriate, because for the most part, I don't know the percentage, but Jay might know this, but the percentage of projects that go before the Landmarks Commission, I think most of them are for residential houses in historic districts, and in certain cases, apartment buildings. But this has a sweeping effect on adaptive reuse. When, it took 5 goes, believe it or not, for the Claremont Stable to end up the way it looks now. And had we had the ability to comment and guide the architect or the owners and the use it would have happened a lot sooner. So I wish to support it because I think this is moving in the right direction. My worry is that landmarks, like all these land use type agencies, are becoming just autonomous, and no one has any say about what happens next door, so I support it.
Shelley?
Yeah, landmarks is a political institution, okay? They're told what to do from above very often. They may have a lot of expertise, but I've seen it. I've seen when I went to an elected official who was told, and things got turned around because the right tool was put in to the commission. So that's really what it's all about. So what's the value of this in terms of the second look like? The other things certainly are worthwhile. We have to know what's going on. We don't know what changes are being made or what's not being accepted. We can't advocate for anything. Ultimately, our resolutions should have an effect. But more importantly, if we take those resolutions to political power, we can have an effect. The fact that we very often don't know what is taking place or what is taking place, in addition to have nothing to say about it, that's totally unacceptable. So I think that this could be a major step in the right direction. And also, when the committee has put such work into an analysis of something, it goes to landmarks, and they say take it back or come back with something, you don't know what it is, it doesn't take into consideration what we said before. It's kind of like a slap in the face for the diligence and the dedication of people who voluntarily come to a committee and spend hours upon hours not only deliberating, listening, thinking, and applying their knowledge and understanding, but then having to write these things up. So I think we should support it unanimously. I can't see anything negative.
If I could just jump in with a couple of additions, I agree with what's been said and repeated. One is that this protects our jurisdiction, because tonight and almost every time we're at full board, there are at least a few of our resolutions that have already been heard at full board, and we come to you and ask for your vote simply to establish our precedent so that we are being consistent with ourselves when we hear new applications. The 45-day part of this would give us a fighting chance to bring most of the projects we see to all of you so that we have the full board's view, which I think before it gets to the public hearing landmarks, and that gives our resolutions more weight, and it makes sure that those of you who might disagree with us have an opportunity to really be heard when it matters. So I think for those reasons, as well as the ones articulated, this should be approved.
Yeah, I just, I had a couple of things to say. The first being that I'm abstaining for voting on this at the committee level. And I just wanted to express some of my thoughts about this proposed bill. Some of it is just very personal. I was a former student of Professor Dorothy Meyer's graduation law class at Columbia, in fact, and she was the senior counsel of the Landmarks Commission, who defended the Landmarks law to the Supreme Court. And her admonishment, as Paige mentioned, not to dilute or alter the Landmarks law remains very strong in my mind. And the other, having actually worked at the Landmarks Commission, doing design and regulatory review for 8 years, I know what it is to have been a staff person there and to have lived the fact that the real estate board in New York's very, very persistent voice to eliminate the Landmarks Commission entirely. And I think that imposed waiting period of 45 days might give fodder to Revenue's claim that the commission really is an obstacle to development and should be eliminated. I think perhaps narrowing, the language as what Jay has tried to do is good in terms of really just focusing on very, very large development projects, because my fear is any delay to the average homeowner, who just wants to do something small. Paying architects, paying engineers, paying land use attorneys, paying all of these consultants, it's an expensive thing. And so, if this is something that becomes an additional burden to the average homeowner, not the big developer, but to the average person, I would be really concerned about that. I did double check, under the new chairwoman, Meenakshi Srinivasan, she has been very, very committed to transparency in her administration of the commission, and I know she's relatively new, but I would say that I have great confidence and faith in the way that she's moving the agency forward. And they do actually have a mechanism in place to advise the public about appropriateness arguments before the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. I know some of this is very specialized language to the average person, but the C of A applications are what our committee actually reviews. So that way, before a sort of C of A is issued, there's actually a mechanism for anyone, not just the applicant, to be able to access those arguments on the internet, which is quite radical and a shift from the way that things ran when I was there. And I do agree, as a relatively new member of the committee and of the community board, that our role as a voice, even if it's in an advisory capacity, is something that we represent the voice of the community. Is very important to represent to the commission. And perhaps some compromise can be achieved with having access to revised presentations, but also in restricting the types of applications that would be reviewed under this different approach, so that there would be less of a burden on the average person. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
I'll get to you in a second. I just want to respond to a couple of things that you said. First of all, I don't all agree that this in any way diminishes the authority or the existence of the Landmarks Commission. I think in many ways it strengthens it. I want to also disagree somewhat with what Clara said. My experience has been over the last few years that we've been able and we've pushed very hard for our voice to be heard in these landmarks projects. For example, I testified on 555 West End Avenue, and I hope I wasn't deluding myself, but I felt that the commissioners were attentive and were listening carefully to our voice, along with others that had testified. The other thing is the 45-day period. The 45-day period wasn't an accident. It was designed to recognize the fact that we only meet once a month as a full board, and there's a gap between when the committee meets and when the board meets. Now, 45 days may seem like a lot, but what the 45 days is triggered from the time that the applicant submits the changes. Now, the applicant doesn't submit the change and the next day Landmarks takes action on it. The applicant submits changes, the staff has to take time to review those changes and perhaps tweak it more, and then it has to be scheduled for a public meeting. So it's not like this project virtually will ever be delayed for 45 days. It's likely it might not be delayed at all. It may take 30 days or 40 days or 50 days for the actual final changes to be made and for the commissioners to make a decision. So the 45 days relates to our process, not to what, as a practical matter, is the board's process.
Piece of it, which is that this is only really for substantial change.
Yes. Oh, well, by the way, and this was put in by the council staff, there's only one second look. There's not a third look or a fourth look or a fifth look. So they put in a safety valve so that the project, even if landmarks were to determine that there were significant changes 2 or 3 times, it wouldn't trigger this. And by the way, the discretion as to when the referral, the second referral is made, was deliberately left with landmarks. This is the agency charged with evaluating these projects. They have the staff, they have the expertise, and basically all we're asking, and the bill also provides that if they don't make a referral, just give us the information as to what the changes were. So we leave virtually all the authority with landmarks, and that's where it should be.
Given that you feel that it could, I'm in favor of this, but given that you feel it could be strengthened, and you hope that it will be at the committee level at council, why not a friendly amendment adding to this, not saying we don't want them just to enact, but we would like to see them strengthen it by allowing the community board to have a second hearing?
Well, a couple of reasons, Ken. Number one, this is the bill that's been submitted and been introduced, and we want to support this bill. I think the process to try and initiate any changes would be now rest with the council process, which is their hearing process, and the discretion of the council member whether she wants to eventually amend the bill depending on the input that you get. The other thing is, very frankly, I think we have to be careful as to how far we go in this. The further we go in terms of requiring processes and hearings will strengthen the argument against this concept. And we don't want to create a situation where somebody could rationally argue that there will be interminable delays. So we try to strike a balance.
So, to put it in simple terms, that I, although I like the election, I think it's an opportunity to re-enfranchise the community board. One of the things that we always complain about is that we submit proposals and we make arguments and we go nowhere. So that although we might be in the charter with respect to certain activities regarding the planning commission, this is an opening for us to get involved and have our voices heard more concretely.
All the questions.
That's 34 in favor, opposed? 0, abstaining? 1, opposed? 0. Passes 34 to 0 to 1 to 0.
The next resolution, again, involves supporting the bill that's been introduced to the city council, and this is one that I had nothing to do with drafting. But it's one that we support, and this bill arose out of that issue of, several months ago when the Landmarks Commission announced that it wanted to decalendar several items that had been languishing for years to designate historic districts, designate individual landmarks. And essentially what this bill does is impose a timetable for the consideration of proposed landmarks and historic districts. It requires the LPC to act
take a vote within 180 days from the conclusion of the public hearing on either the historic district or the individual landmark. There's one thing in the bill that we don't support, which is language that says if the LPC does not act, that within 180 days, then the matter cannot be considered for approval for 5 years. I believe the rationale for that was the theory that if the LPC was under a gun to approve these or vote on them, with the threat that they couldn't do so for 5 years, they would take action. Unfortunately, many of us and many of our colleagues in the preservation community felt that the result might be just the opposite, that they would simply stall, not act for 180 days, knowing that they then wouldn't have to deal with it for 5 years. So the resolution supports the bill, except for the language that prohibits them from acting for 5 years if they don't act within 180 days. So with that caveat, we support the bill.
The concern amongst the preservation community, and I share this, is that 5 years is like sentencing a building to limbo. And it's in fact recalibrated. During that time, that's when most landmarks undergo the greatest change. All of a sudden the cornice goes at night, front stairs are removed, windows are taken out. And so the question is, I think this bill is needed, but I think it does play to the fact that, oh great, it's going to be a landmark, we have 5 years to strip it, and then they're going to forget about it. So I find it very hard to support. I know, but that's what I'm saying, that's why I agree with you and can't support Bill's original thing. I know,
And your point about what would happen during that 5-year period is an excellent point. Appreciate it.
I just wanted to also voice my support for the resolution because, given what I think really is a fiasco, embarrassment, that some buildings that have been sitting in a calendar limbo state since the 1960s, where the owners, some of them are very responsible and don't do these defacing or demolishing acts towards county properties, but some do. And I just think it's not respectful of the owners to have their buildings be in a calendar state for an unspecified period of time, which could be years or decades. So I think the resolution with striking the language as noted here is really positive. Thanks.
Yes. All those in favor, raise your hands. There's 31 in favor, opposed?
That was the calendar issue, right? So this is the one I'm staying.
That's why I called for all. So did it go after I was like?
Middle pass.
Okay, so 32, opposed, 0,
I'm not gonna come to you,
abstaining,
but data was.
0, for cause, 0.
And the final item is actually the one that we discussed earlier, and that's a resolution asking landmarks, when they vote on the final extension of the West End Riverside Historic District, to vote on the original configuration, which included those blocks on Broadway that they've now taken out,
and that square block from 95th to 96 from West End to Riverside, that among other buildings, houses the school, PS 75. So a vote on the resolution would be calling upon LPC to restore the original configuration, and we have yet to hear their rationale for carving out a square block, and notwithstanding Helen being told by the city that there's no pending development or anything, I'm extremely skeptical, since we've been given no reason why they're carving these sections out.
Yeah, quick question. Oh, go ahead. Would voting in favor, is there any risk that voting in favor would slow down LPC's vote on this overall district?
Not if they restored the original configuration. I mean, it's there.
But no matter what, are they going to vote on June 23rd?
It's there. That's the configuration they had the public hearing on 4 years ago. So they have the study. The study resulted in the original configuration. They had the public hearing, and they've actually unilaterally, without any public hearing, carved out these sections.
Just quickly, although we're not dealing with individual landmarks, we're dealing with landmark district.
Correct.
I think that's what's important here. The school itself may not be particularly special in its design or anything, but there is something within it that's outdoors. And that's that on 95th Street, the community came together and built the area with the kiosks and all the open space, beautiful area. And so that was a historic event that took place there, unique, certainly in our community, where people actually built the garden there and fixed up other parts there. So it's a historic school with a historic element outside, and it should be done anyway. That's something actually.
All the questions.
All those in favor, raise your hands.
Wrap it up fast.
32 in favor, opposed? I have one opposed. Abstaining? 0 for cause. 0. 32 to 1 to 0 to 0.
Thanks everyone for your patience.
Okay, we have 2 items tonight, but before, and I don't think either of them will take a long time. But just before I start, I will say that the Parks and Environment Committee is not meeting in June. But I would tell you that in July, we expect to have a very interesting item on our agenda that certainly uses the Riverside Park and people in the neighborhood may have a strong interest in, and that is the cafe at the boat basin at 79th Street. The current concession is expiring, and the Parks Department is going to come to us in July to talk about what the community would like to see in a new request for proposals for that spot. It's a very popular eating spot in the summer, so come in July. Okay, so we have 2 items tonight. You know, we meet the 3rd Monday in July, Michelle, and I mean each month. I don't know what day it is in July, but I believe it's not changed. 20th says Mark. So the first resolution involves the reconstruction. We don't have graphics tonight. I'll just briefly describe this. We had graphics at the committee, but we actually didn't receive them, and the Parks Department may be putting them on their website, except for doesn't have enough. So the sidewalks along Riverside
Drive on the park side, on Riverside Park side, that is the west side of Riverside Drive, are part of the park. And they're actually part of the original Riverside Park that was designed by Olmsted in the 1880s-ish. And although there have been many changes and work on them over the years, in the most recent iterations, there have been a tremendous amount of deterioration. So gradually, each section or group of blocks has been reconstructed over the years, and the one that's the subject tonight is from 91st to 95th Street, in really terrible shape. Every one of these sections, blocks at a time, has been on our budget priorities list, and we've actually gradually got them funded through our prior council persons, and now Helen Rosenthal has gotten discretionary funding for the reconstruction of 91st to 95th Street. So it's the usual type of thing, putting in hex block, improving the street, the trees, the tree pits. There's the classic Riverside luminaire, which is the enclosure for the light bulb at the top of the light poles. New benches, the usual stuff, and infrastructure underneath. I forgot to put in the resolution that there is going to be a slight Vision Zero traffic calming change at the corner where there's going to be, we call it a real bump out compared to some we've seen, but a slight new curvature at the north and southwest corner of Riverside and 95th, which will add a few square feet basically to the park and take it away from the road. And that is intended to be a bit of a traffic calming element. But primarily, it's about reconstructing the sidewalks. So are there any questions? Seeing I will be none, we can take a vote. Brian, you ready to go?
Yes.
Great.
Opposed? 0 abstaining. 0 for cause. 0. 33 to 0.
Okay, our second one concerns Central Park. For those who don't know this, two things. One, this Parks Department has a contract with the Central Park Conservancy, which is a private, not-for-profit organization. I'm not sure whether the verb is manage, but it's something that effectively manage the park. So we often hear presentations from the Conservancy on restoration projects in Central Park, which has been almost entirely restored since the 1970s, with some public money and a lot of private money as well. So we had a wonderful presentation, and again, we don't have graphics tonight, but with us this entire evening over there is Lane Adamuzio from the Conservancy, who has made this very interesting and wonderful presentation. They always have great historic photos, show us prior conditions dating back to the time the park was designed typically, and then updated through the years, and showing the deterioration and then the restorations that are being proposed. In this case, it's really two parts of the park that are considered the most wilderness within the park. Many people don't realize that Central Park is almost entirely constructed wilderness. There's very little of it, other than at the very northern end that is actually natural rock and water, etc. And many of the times you see water running, it looks like a little brook. There's really a pump, and there's a pipe and all of that underneath it. Anyway, the two areas tonight are part of what's called the Ramble. You may know it, it's in the West 70s. There's a large lake, you may know the gondola and the boathouse. Over 3, 4, 5 years, the lake has gradually been restored in conservancy projects. This is kind of the last piece of it. And there's a little water course in the Ramble called the Gill, which is kind of like a thin stream, sometimes a lot thinner than it used to be. Anyway, with the Ramble, and this is really the last part of the restoration of that lake area, two things are being done. One is the Gill is being sediment cleaned out and extra foliage that doesn't belong is being cleaned out, although no major established trees. And so the water course is basically being restored, not to its precise originally designed configuration, but close and very much the atmosphere that it was designed to have. And then the second thing is there are four very charming little rustic structures that are going to be reconstructed in this area. In the northern part of the park, around 102nd Street, is an area called the Ravine. Within the ravine, and this again is a very relatively wildernessly, I mean, for New York City, it's wilderness, for Manhattan. And it's also has a water course called the Loch, L-O-C-H, which is Scottish for lake. It's not really a lake, it never was. It really is a series, it's sort of a section of streams that widen at various points and then narrow. Same sorts of problems with sediment and vegetation that doesn't belong, etc. So the Conservancy is going, and it's all of this, there's money for all of this, the money's there. And they're going to be restoring this sort of stream with a series of pools as it goes along in the ravine that's called the Loch. So that's what this is all about. The photos are really fun, but we don't have them. Elizabeth.
Somebody was here earlier and wanted to know if we could put on the website.
Blaine, how do we do that?
We can get you some materials to put up. As I mentioned at the meeting, there was a special presentation, a lot of images that are stored on our conditions board, but we have to figure out what we can put up and
Sure.
That'd be great.
Sure. No, I think we'd be happy to do that, and we'd be happy to get from you whatever we can put up, because these are really interesting, fun projects. So anyway, the money's in place. There's not going to be any major impediment to public use of these areas. And does anybody have any other questions? Okay, let's take a vote.
Yes.
Opposed? Abstentions? None. What? No. 32,000. Yes.
Thank you, Clary.
Can I just ask Clary a question? I heard through the preservation rumor mill that there is a proposed plan to introduce city bikes around the perimeter of Central Park. And I have to tell you, and I don't know why I didn't think about this before, because I should have said it at the beginning of the whole session. And I haven't been able to find out much information about it, but just so you know, it's not going at the curb, it's going up against the wall, where the couples go.
You should have been at Dan Andrews' meeting last.
Oh, God, did I open up and I
Yes,
sorry.
there's a one. He opened up a huge page, it's all on our website.
Is it?
And it's absolutely what you're saying,
Yeah,
is absolutely correct. Any place where you can enter the park where the sidewalks aren't restricted, there's a bike ship against the
Because I
wall.
just remember, the reason why I say this, years ago, when Ron Lauder, Diana Ross, all these people were gonna go and name everything. Everybody, it was gonna be Ross Way and Water Park and all this. Everybody said no, and I was shocked. So I go to our website.
Yes.
Shame on me. No more delay. Thank you all.
Item tonight on committee, this is Mr. Reisch's, George Michelle. Okay, number 12 are 3 new SLA applications, but not really new. The first one at 180 Columbus is Il Violino, you know that restaurant 68. And Columbus, they have a change of ownership, and as you know with the SLA, every time you have a change of corporate stockholder, corporate partners, you have to submit a new application to the State Liquor Authority. The second one, 568 Amsterdam, is now the Mermaid Inn. It is owned by a husband and wife team. The wife is going to stay there and make this an Italian restaurant, so she needs a liquor license. The husband's going to move next door to 570 Amsterdam Avenue, the site of Mama Joanna, the
former Mama Joanna. Did I say that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mama Juana.
Yeah.
No, how do you say it? And he's gonna open up a place called the Mermaid Grill. So, these are people who have a lot of experience in the restaurant business. It's nice to know that the husband's gonna open up another restaurant. I don't think they're divorcing, and we're asking you to approve the SLA applications for these 3 locations. All those in favor?
Okay, 31 opposed. No one's opposed, right? None. Abstentions? None. What was that? 31-0-0-0.
So we're looking at number 13, which is a SLA, formerly Talani.
Now Fonda.
Now it's Thunder NYC. So that passed unanimously 7-0-0. And we're doing 14 also, which is, okay, let's just do 13 then, which is approval, excuse me. Yeah, approval. All those in favor?
14 is also disapproval of the versions.
No, 13's an approval, because that's a mistake.
It's a mistake on the, on your sheet here.
It says disapprove without prejudice, but it should say approved.
Okay.
So we're asking for your approval.
Hands up.
No prejudice. Right. They didn't show up.
Okay, 32. 4 opposed. None. 0. Abstentions. 0. And the cause. 0.
And number 14, which is 1991 Broadway, the applicant did not show up, so that's a sugar factory. So there was a disapproval without prejudice. Yes. Oh.
All those in favor of the resolution?
Thirty, 31, 32. Opposed. Abstentions. 32-0-0.
Number 15 are cafe renewal applications we'd like to bundle quickly. Lenny's, East Manhattan Spice, Dead Poet, Spring Natural Kitchens, Cilantro, and Firehouse. All of you.
Wait, a moment, please.
Yeah.
Point of order. If the secretary could note that I am declaring an interest and recusing myself from voting on Spring Natural, but otherwise I'll be voting in favor.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
Dan, you wanted to say something?
Just a question about the 4799 Cascabel Cafe.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. That's the last one, Casabel Taqueria. Yes.
Did you have any discussion of the notion that they have exterior speakers that broadcast out from the cafe? Just mentioning it, really it's not been a hardship in the way they've done it, but in general, I don't recall a cafe where they were allowed to have speakers outside broadcasting.
Yeah, we did. We told them take them off. Take them away, yes.
We told them that, they couldn't have the doors open, the door, that's the one that has that's one of the French door, has a French door. Okay, because I think that was the one that had a French door. You told me that if they had music, they had the door shut because the music was going out and bothering some of the neighbors.
Yeah, typically, we don't want any noise emanating from inside the restaurant to outside the cafe. So we'll take that number 15 for the, yes, I'm sorry. Sir.
We had a member of the public who was
expressed concerns about narrowing the sidewalks, particularly on Columbus between 81st and 86th. And they were alleging that some cafes go out more than 9 feet, and I realize that's the way. Do we have a regulation that we observe of how much free passage there should be for pedestrians? Because on one of those blocks, it's about 4 or 5 feet of free passage for pedestrians between the cafe and the street pad or the corner of the road.
The short answer is yes. And you can go look in the regs that we have.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to come to our meetings
There's no
and look at the architectural plans
So it's 9
for
feet.
every single cafe.
9 feet. 9 feet.
8 feet, it's 9 feet from the building, but from the end of the cafe to the street.
5-foot clearance, and DCA measures all of that and decides if that's okay before they do a permit. But it's 5 feet clearance.
Sir.
I think that the concern for the citizen also was that the cafe owners were violating the space regulation they were spending beyond what they were supposed to be allowed to.
Well, we do have that spread, as we call it, toward the end of the summer, but, you know, we have people that look in that, and I think, I can't say. Just tell the office if you see that, okay? How about that, Penny?
Consumer Affairs will come out on a complaint and measure, and
Yeah.
they have our measurements in their computer system when they come out. So just let us know which ones, okay?
Yeah, that's good. So we're asking you to vote for approval on all of these enclosed cafes.
And we have 32 people in the room, so I'm just gonna ask everyone to raise their hand if they're for. Okay. Okay, those opposed? Those abstaining? 1. Okay, so it's 31, 0, 1. Opposed? 0. 31, 0, 1, 0.
So, okay, so we're looking at 16 and 17. 16, 370 Columbus, Garrett International. And 722 Amsterdam, which is our product Thai, and which, you know, on OPI, we had a pre-meeting this evening. The vote was 7000 on both of them. It's one bundle, both 16 and 17.
And-
Yes, they're approved.
And these are unenclosed cafes.
So all those in favor, please.
It's an
Approval.
approval. Yeah, we changed it because we had a meeting before the meeting,
Yeah.
before this meeting.
Okay, 31 opposed. Abstentions, so we're going to look 4 and opposed. Abstentions? No opposed, 1 abstention, and none of the votes. 31, 0, 1, 0.
Number 18 is, number 18 is, our enclosed cafe renewal applications. You know these sites: West Side Restaurant, my most favorite at 72nd Street, Artie's, Celeste, and Cleopatra's Needle. You know them all as being in the neighborhood for many years, and you love them.
And you love them.
And we're asking, says George, and we're asking that you vote to approve their renewals. All those, and your love will take later. All those in favor?
Okay, 28 opposed. 4 abstention. 1. So it's 27 for. Weren't you opposed? You abstaining now? Okay, 26 for 2. 0.
Thank you. Okay.
Secretary just needs.
Yeah, sure.
These are unclosed, yeah.
These are
Oh,
unuclosed?
no, this is the flats.
Oh. See them back to all of them before them.
Okay, thank you. We can bundle, unless you disagree, 19, 20, 21, and 22, which are all new unenclosed cafe applications. Bellini, Mermaid Grill, remember I told you about their SLA application, they also want the outdoor cafe. So that's Bellini, Mermaid Grill, Levantino, and Earth Cafe. These are all unenclosed cafes. Question mark.
Sorry, on Earth Cafe, which is what, 98th Street, is it, 97? Does that wrap around, 97, I think, does it wrap around the side street?
Good question. Okay, so they came to us with architectural plans that did not include the side street, but kind of jutted out into the side street from the avenue, like think French roast without the side cafe, without the cafe on the side.
So they exceed the width of the storefront,
Right.
don't go down the street.
So we told them they had to change that, and they changed it.
And they can still get 14 tables in there?
Yeah, I guess, you know, this, yes, because it's a, I don't know. Can somebody look at the notes? Because I know they changed, no, they sent, you're right, they sent in revised architectural plans. You know, I'm gonna ask for an approval and we'll put the new numbers in, because they sent the revised architectural plans and they cut out the 3 tables there, and I think 3 tables from even the front of the store on the avenue. So it had, you're right, it had gotten much smaller. Can we do it that way, Liz?
So subject to.
Yeah, the revision down of the numbers of tables and chairs to conform with the architectural plans.
It says Mermaid.
It's Mermaid Grill. That has to change also. I mean, in your minds and in your vote.
In your heart.
It's number 20, Mermaid Grill. So can we do that, Liz? Can I ask for Earth Cafe?
These are mostly places that we already had them before.
No, they never did before. They're new restaurants by and large.
Well, Mama wanted that one. Yes.
When it was Mama Wana, yes. So 19, 20, 21, and 22, 22 with the provision that we'll change the number, which is lower than what's here. We're asking, I'm sorry? It's different.
23 is a little bit different.
Okay, so we're, all those in favor of the application, the new unenclosed cafe applications at these 4 venues?
Thirty-two, 4, opposed, 0, abstentions, 0, was 0.
Okay, the last one is number 23, which is a change of ownership of the closed cafe application. This was just a process that the expediter took longer than necessary. So we approved it. The only issue that came up with one of the tenants was that they were playing music in the morning and disturbing a commercial tenant that had a business above it. So the agreement was made by both parties that there be no loud music played in the morning at the restaurant, and the commercial tenant above them was satisfied. So we approved it, and it was approved unanimously. So all those in favor, please.
Thank you.
30, all opposed. 1, 2, people stand for Okay, so, okay, 4, 5 opposed, 1, 3. And abstentions?
That's it.
And cause.
Thank you.
It
Thank you,
is,
everybody.
27, votes 4, 5 opposed, 0 abstentions, 0.
That winds up the agenda tonight. Motion to adjourn. Just one quick reminder to everyone, next Tuesday is the City Bike Safety and Infrastructure meeting. We want to encourage